To harden the familiar's shell, Gao Peng swings a hammer directly at his pet centipede. Dazid desperately tries to escape the brutal training, but Gao Peng chases the creature down, insisting this torment is for its own good. He knows that enduring the little pain now is the only way to build an impenetrable defense. Gao Peng is a monster breeder, capable of pushing any creature past its natural limits. When corporate mercenaries need their devil mantises upgraded, they bring them directly to him. He pinpoints the strongest specimens with a single glance. With absolute precision, he handles the exact materials needed to trigger an instant evolution. His ruthless efficiency earns him the admiration of industry veterans. But his absolute mastery over monsters began years ago, when the world as humanity knew it came to a sudden, violent end. When the disaster struck, Gao Peng unlocked a system that allows him to see the hidden evolution paths of monsters. He lives under the protection of Tang Tang, his housekeeper and butler. His grandfather, Jihanwu, is a powerful fighter and the wealthy founder of the Southern Sky Group. Gao Peng's first familiar is Dazi, a cruel centipede left by his parents, who secretly cares for him. He also adopted Stripey, a gentle spider, because he could not bear to leave it alone after Grandma Chen passed away. To give his rowing team a safe home, he exhausts himself working to afford a secluded villa. He knows his family's Southern Sky Group holds immense wealth. Dreaming of his grandfather's oceanside mansion and rare beasts, Gao Peng schemes to get a share of that fortune. Working in his lab, he vows to evolve even a simple loach into a dragon that can soar to the heavens. All of this traces back 3 years, when a cataclysm mutated the world's wildlife and devastated human civilization. Having lost his parents to the chaos, Gao Peng joined the humans who awakened the ability to control these monsters. Now, as he reflects on the powerful beauty protecting him, he relies on his system to navigate this new era. He still searches for answers about his grandfather, who vanished bizarrely during the disaster. With deadly, giant monsters lurking at every turn, he knows he cannot afford to be weak. His only path forward is to become the strongest trainer and evolve an epic-grade familiar. 3 years ago, Earth underwent a drastic change, and humans awakened the power to control monsters, becoming known as monster trainers. At Chang'an Third High School, homeroom teacher Marang Chiyuye tells her class that this new era will be on the test. She adds that there is a monster taming examination tomorrow, so anyone interested can go watch. 18-year-old Gao Peng walks home, dreaming of becoming a monster trainer. But lately he has been seeing strange blue interfaces, which he assumes are hallucinations caused by stress, even though they claim he has bound a monster evolution system. In his building's stairwell, a status window pops up over his neighbor Granny Chen's pet, confirming it is a level 3 striped gray disc spider, and Gao Peng realizes the system is real. He remembers Moran Chuye calling the species gentle, right before the spider lunges at him, forcing him to dodge and yell for Granny Chen. He narrowly avoids a spray of webbing and panics as the spider quickly catches up to him on the stairs. Realizing the answer must be in the system data, he sees the monster is weak to fire, so he hurls a makeshift explosive. But the fire is too small, and the system warns him that the spider is now angry. He sprints up the last flight of stairs, desperate to reach his apartment where he knows he will be safe. As the spider looms over him, Gao Peng screams for his familiar, Daza. The door smashes open, and his centipede slithers out through the smoke to defend him. A man taunts a spider creature with his shadowy entity, asking if it still wants to play. Back in his room, a creature flies past Gao Peng, who uses their mind link to hear the monster complain that it is starving to death because he came back late. He observes Dazi in its shrunk non-combat form, which monsters use to save energy and heal light injuries. Gao Peng agrees to feed him and tells Daza to put his bag on the shelf. He rolls up his sleeves and grabs a knife to prepare a meal. He serves the steaming dinner and warns the eager centipede to eat slowly so he does not choke. Looking at his system interface, Gao Peng is shocked to discover the exact requirements to upgrade Dazi from a normal to an excellent grade. Realizing this could eventually unlock a legendary perfect grade boss monster, he hugs Daza and promises to upgrade him. While Dazi eats, Gao Peng checks the list, which requires 10 pieces of shade grass and 600 grams of thunderstruck wood. He notes those materials are easy to find, but a rare lightning core crystal will cost at least 10 alliance credits. He recalls that $10,000 equal 1 credit, and he only has the 20 credits the government sent as a pension when his parents died. He worries that upgrading Dazi will prevent them from living normal lives anymore. Dazi begs for more food, so Gao Peng begrudgingly agrees to get him another serving. He feeds the centipede again, warning him not to complain if he gets a stomachache. Gao Peng's stress is over having a recipe but lacking the money to buy the materials. He suddenly realizes that if his system's information is real, he can try out as a monster breeder to make money. Because upgrade paths are a mystery to everyone else, his ability to see them directly means he can become the strongest and wealthiest breeder in the world. He remembers Moran Chiuye mentioning an exam tomorrow and checks his phone, worried that he might have already missed the registration deadline. Gao Peng hurriedly confirmed his registration for the monster breeder exam, so he can secure a spot, cheering when the system tells him to report to the Chang'an City branch tomorrow morning. The next morning, Gao Peng knocks on Tang's door. She opens the door with a yawn to wish him good morning, and he stammers a greeting back. Tang asks why he is up so early, so he explains he is heading to the exam. He asks her to take care of Dizzy for a few days, and she tells him not to worry. Relieved that he can take his test without worrying about the centipede, Gao Peng promises to treat her to dinner when he gets back. After he leaves, Tong looks down at Daza and wonders aloud how Gao Peng ever contracted with such a normal grade unlucky thing, which prompts the centipede to hiss at her. She sighs, knowing the old man will be furious when he finds out. She takes a call from Zhe Huanwu and warns him not to get agitated, because Gao Peng has already bound a normal-grade purple-backed, yellow-clawed centipede as his familiar. Ji Hanwu demands to know why she did not stop him from taking a familiar with such limited potential, but she reminds him that his grandson is just as stubborn as he is. She adds that the centipede was left to Gao Peng by Ji Hanwu's own daughter. Tang asks if he is finished with his business, and Ji Hanwu says he will kill anyone disobedient and replace them. Tang tells him to do things his own way, promising that Gao Peng will not be in any danger as long as she is around. Back at his office, Ji Hanwu gives his staff a 5-month deadline for the experimental department to prove their worth, and 7 months to settle the Qinghai branch. He promises himself that he will settle everything within a year so he can return to Gao Peng and ensure no one ever hurts him again. Later, Gao Peng arrives at the Chang'an City Monster Breeder branch and notes the crowd gathered for the exam. A group of students calls his name, and Gao Peng turns to greet Li Zugong, Li Hongdo, and their mother, Zhang Hong. Li Zugong assumes Gao Peng is just there to watch, explaining that they are here to support their mother because she has already failed the exam 3 times. Gao Peng clarifies that he is actually here to take the exam himself, leaving Li Zugong in shock. Zhang Hong pats Gao Peng on the shoulder, praising his ambition and suggesting he might become Chang'an City's youngest monster breeder today. Gao Peng modestly claims he is just here to try his luck, but another examinee nearby overhears the conversation. As a security laser sight sweeps over the crowd, Wang Shu arrogantly complains about the low standards that let random people participate. Li Jun yells back, but his sister, Li Hongdo, grabs his hand and asks what he is saying. Wang Shu mocks the young boy's ambition to become a monster breeder. Gao Peng sarcastically tells Wang Shu that if verbal insults were the criteria, he would already be a high-class breeder, making Wang Shu shout threats. Zhang Hong explains that Wang Shu is insecure because he has failed the exam 4 times. The branch doors open to reveal riot police in the mist, and main examiner Feng Shu announces the official start of the exam. Inside, Feng Shu announces that the exam is split into written and practical stages, while Gao Peng takes his seat. Feng Shu explains they must accurately describe the monsters shown in 3 short clips to pass, and officially begins the test. Staring at his desk, Gao Peng expresses frustration at his own weakness and vows to kill all the monsters that ruin his life. The first clip plays and locks onto a blue shark-like creature swimming through the water. Feng Shu gives the students 20 minutes to think and write down their answers. The students panic, complaining that the clip was too fast to observe anything. Feng Shu sternly warns that anyone who continues chattering will be thrown out, dropping the classroom into a tense silence. Wang Shu smugly notes to himself that he got the questions ahead of time, making Gao Peng roll his eyes at the poser. Realizing his system responds to his focus, Gao Peng uses it to identify the creature as a storm dolphin and writes down its traits. The second clip shows a horned monkey reaching for bananas before striking the camera. Gao Peng's system identifies it as an impatient, strong monkey that fears poison, allowing him to fill out the next section. The final clip reveals a giant insectoid monster creeping through a dark forest. Gao Peng smiles confidently as the system pulls up the stats for a fire-fearing sharp mantis. At 10 o'clock, the written test ends, and Feng Shu instructs the students to submit their papers. The examinees hand in their documents and are told to wait in the branch office for their results. Examiner Feng announces the passing candidates, and Zhang Hong laughs because she scored an 81. After Feng Shu confirms the passing students still made mistakes, Wang Shu checks his score of 86 and mocks Gao Peng, assuming he failed because his name was not called. Feng Shu asks who Gao Peng is, and when Gao Peng raises his hand, the examiner praises him for scoring full marks. The other students are shocked to see a high schooler ace the test, while Feng Shu smiles and tells Wang Shu he is sorry to disappoint him. The group marvels at the big facility before Feng Shu explains they must increase a monster's grade within a week to pass. He warns that the association covers material costs, but anyone who fails or exceeds the material limit will have to pay market value. Examiner Li Jin instructs the candidates to draw lots for their rooms, which Gao Peng realizes makes the test completely unpredictable. Gao Peng hopes for a good draw as he reaches into the box, while Li Jin sneers because he arranged a surprise for the boy. A candidate notes she drew room 6 before Gao Peng reveals he got room 10, and Feng Shu officially begins the practical test. At room 10, Zhou Yuan introduces himself as the supervisor and unlocks the door. Gao Peng spots red eyes in the shadows before his system reveals a level 10 Red River ape that is diseased and dispirited. Zhou Yuan explains that the ape is filled with conflicting energy from too many experiments, claiming they had to use it because the association ran out of monsters. In truth, Li Jin deliberately assigned the dying ape to the test to ensure Gao Peng fails, having promised Wang Shu he would sabotage the boy. Zhou Yuan admits the ape is only surviving on stubbornness, so he offers to help Gao Peng defer his practical test to keep his perfect written score for next time. Gao Peng tells Zhou Yuan he has made his choice, and Zhou Yuan wishes him luck. Gao Peng opens the door to the Red River ape's enclosure, finding the injured creature cowering in fear. Previous researchers gave up on the ape, declaring it garbage because its body contains too many conflicting energies. As the beast roars and rattles its cage, Gao Peng pets its head and promises to help it evolve. He checks the system for its upgrade requirements, noting the normal path clears its yin toxins to reach excellent grade, but a distorted pathological warping evolution will absorb the yin power to create a whole new excellent grade monster, which he needs because the normal path exceeds the exam budget. He decides to risk the distorted evolution. Zhou Yuan hands over the requested materials and asks if Gao Peng is trying to kill the ape, because the ingredients are highly poisonous. Gao Peng assures him that a serious disease requires strong medicine, but Zhou Yuan leaves, assuming Gao Peng is just another student with full written marks but no practical skills. 3 days later, other examinees are failing their practical tests and suffering injuries. Meanwhile, the Red River ape finishes its 3-day diet of black candle grass and consumes the ghoul crystal core, reaching its peak physical state. As Gao Peng prepares the sulfuric acid mixture, Zhou Yuan hands over the cage key and warns him to be careful, because the ape has suffered through many experiments and might attack. Gao Peng knows releasing a monster without a blood contract is dangerous, but he decides to trust the creature. He unmops the door and tells the ape to come out and be obedient. The beast charges at him, but instead of striking, it pulls him into a tight hug, so Gao Peng tells it to let go so they can finish its upgrade. Gao Peng prepares the bath and tells the nervous Red River ape to soak in the tub so it can emerge as a new being. He plucks a small object from the creature's fur, which it tosses away just before panicking at a sudden shadow. Gao Peng notes the ape is quite smart. He touches the creature's head, promising to give it power as long as it stays brave, and the ape falls silent under his hand. The ape's eye snaps open as it submerges into the dark, swirling liquid. Thick smoke fills the room, making Gao Peng cough. Meanwhile, a security guard spots a fire alarm triggered in room 10, prompting staff to grab extinguishers and rush over, because they assume the young boy made an operational error. They rappel down the hallway as alarms blare and kick the door open. They freeze in surprise when someone points out there is no fire, only smoke, and Gao Peng turns around to see Zhou Yuan. Zhou Yuan explains he came to check on the ruckus, and Gao Peng apologizes for being too engrossed in his work to notice the alarm. Zhou Yuan radios the staff to turn off the alarm and head back because the room is clear. Feng Shu and the other examiners arrive to investigate the commotion, assuming the young boy lacks experience and that the room is empty. Wen Shu watches from the doorway and gloats over the failed experiment, eager to see how Gao Peng will talk his way out of this. A skeletal hand grips the edge of the tub, and a bone creature pulls itself from the water, making Wang Shu recoil in terror at the ghost. Energy surges through the room as Gao Peng stands before the skeletal spirit. The examiners stare in shock, realizing Gao Peng actually succeeded in evolving the Red River ape. Gao Peng checks the creature's status to confirm the Red River ape has become a level 11 skull ghoul ape, realizing his system can evolve any monster as long as he has the right materials. An examiner excitedly tells Feng Shu that this is a completely undiscovered ghoul species, but Feng Shu says the real treasure is the boy who created it. Gao Peng proudly reports his success, and Feng Shu praises him for living up to his rank as the top-written examinee. A skeletal hand manifests behind Gao Peng as the newly evolved creature reaches out to him. Gao Peng asks the entity if it is satisfied with its new grade, and it lets out a ghostly wail. Gao Peng realizes that successfully evolved monsters are usually awarded to the association, hoping he can somehow keep it. But director Feng Shu notes how attached the creature is to Gao Peng and offers it to him. The other examiners are shocked, and Gao Peng points at himself in surprise. Feng Shu confirms the offer, telling him he can have it. He explains that since it is an unrecorded species that successfully evolved, Gao Peng should take it home. Looking at its stats, Gao Peng realizes Dumby is now a perfect grade skull ghoul ape and will reach commander tier at level 20. Feng Shu urges him to agree quickly as the ape whimpers, desperate to go with him. The staff member with glasses interrupts, arguing that association tradition awards such monsters to the staff. Another examiner accuses Gao Peng of cheating, arguing a kid could never pull off such an evolution. The staff member suggests Gao Peng just got incredibly lucky and healed it by accident. Feng Shu asks if they are trying to invalidate the test, but the examiner insists the monster should still go to the staff. Feng Shu laughs at their arrogance, then asks Gao Peng to show his skills to prove them wrong. Gao Peng sighs, annoyed that his simple certificate test has turned into a troublesome mess. He turns on the examiners, calling them incapable and ignorant for assuming he just got lucky. He calls them petty fools for assuming the Red River ape is a water attribute just because of its name. He reveals he fed it ghoul-type materials to stimulate its evolution, mocking them for feeding it yin-type ingredients when yin is actually its weakness. The blonde examiner argues it should be wood-type, but Feng Shu confirms that yin is indeed the correct weakness. Gao Peng warns everyone against blindly experimenting to evolve the Red River ape because the exact amount and order of materials are crucial, and he refuses to take responsibility if the species goes extinct. Feng Shu claps and praises Gao Peng's abilities, granting him an intermediate monster breeder certificate because that is the highest his authority allows. He tells Gao Peng to take the assessment at the Yanjing headquarters to get an advanced certificate, and Gao Peng thanks him. Feng Shu then turns to the crowd, revealing he knows who the real cheater is because Wang Shu accidentally mentioned the Red River ape was an eliminated experiment. As the crowd realizes Wang Shu and Examiner Li were targeting Gao Peng, Zhou Yuhan accuses Manager Li of intentionally listing the ape, and another witness confirms Li took Wang Shu's bribe. Wang Shu collapses in defeat as Feng Shu strips him of his test qualification and bans him for 3 years, before firing Li Jin and blacklisting him from the association. Feng Shu apologizes for the ruckus and invites Gao Peng to his office to ask him a favor. Later, Gao Peng examines his new certification in a book that adds 30 points to his college entrance exam, having named his new skull ghoul ape Dumby because it likes to sit in a daze. He boards a bus with Dumby and its new ID card, pleased that being on good terms with the boss made the agency so efficient. He recalls his meeting in Feng Shu's office, where the director asked him to represent Chang'an City in the World Monster Breeder Tournament because the city lacks talented breeders. Feng Shu explained that since the cataclysm happened only 3 years ago, everyone starts from the same line, allowing a prodigy like Gao Peng to shine. Gao Peng was hesitant to take on the pressure until Feng Shu mentioned a consolation prize of 10,000 credits, prompting Gao Peng to immediately stand up and accept the responsibility. Back on the bus, Gao Peng complains about the troublesome tournament, while a passenger notices Dumby's rare ghoul-type nature and decides to pluck one of its hairs to see what happens. Dumby reacts and restrains the man with red energy strings. Thinking about the 10,000 credit prize, Gao Peng sighs and tells Dumby he has no choice but to enter the tournament because he needs the money to afford feeding both him and Daza. As onlookers marvel that he tamed such a fierce monster without a contract, Gao Peng narcissistically blames his struggles on being too talented and wonders if he should just ask Tang for help. Gao Peng walks down the street until Dumby suddenly shoves him aside. A beam of light blasts into the skeletal ape. Gao Peng asks Dumby why he pushed him. Seeing Dumby took the hit to protect him, Gao Peng tells the skeleton to relax because they are a family now. He tries to introduce Dumby to Dizzy, but freezes in shock. Tang arrives to pick Gao Peng up. Gao Peng points at the bloated creature and asks if that is really Dizzy, while Tang proudly claims she fed it plenty of good stuff to make it strong. Seeing the centipede's status reads extreme overnutrition, Gao Peng criticizes Daza for getting completely out of shape. Dumby stares at the fat centipede and celebrates its own victory. Tang asks about his exam, so Gao Peng explains he easily earned an intermediate monster breeder certificate and accepted the evolved monster to avoid embarrassing the director. Tang is shocked, so he holds up the red certificate to prove it is real. She admits his growth is surprising, then asks if he knows why trainers hold such high status when familiars are just beasts. Gao Peng asks if trainers have another form of defense, and she asks if he wants to learn it. She gives him a technique that links a trainer to their familiar's health, which Gao Peng realizes is a huge advantage to survive. After learning the skill, Gao Peng feels an invisible string tying him to Dizzy, and realizes Tang is far more capable than she appears to possess such a technique. He calls Dizzy a fat pig and orders Dumby to bring a mirror so the centipede can see itself. He orders Dazi to exercise and lose the weight so he can increase its grade because he refuses to raise a flying fat centipede. The next day, Gao Peng meets Tang in the city center, and she thanks him for coming to help her company despite his new intermediate rank. She explains that her business partner stole her investment money and their breeders, while Gao Peng notes they are on a lavish street where the rent must be expensive. Tang explains that business has been slow, and Gao Peng wonders why she is acting so weird today. She leads him upstairs to discuss the future of the shop. Gao Peng feels it is way too generous, but Tang says she would rather have fewer breeders than ruin the shop's reputation. He knows that anyone else offering this would be setting a trap, but because Tang has cared for him since he became an orphan, he decides to accept and work hard to earn money for her. He agrees, and Tang is relieved that he suspects nothing. She brings him upstairs, introduces him to the receptionist Sun Quanchen, and quickly leaves. Gao Peng awkwardly greets Quan, who begins to register his information. While a waiting customer spots his youth, Gao Peng decides to charge 3 times the normal rate because his ability guarantees a 100% success rate. Quan hands over his certificate and warned him that such a high price will scare off customers and ruin the studio's reputation. The waiting customer interrupts to offer 10 times the price as long as Gao Peng heals his familiar. Gao Peng insists that 3 times is enough for his first order and asks to see the creature, so the desperate man decides to trust him. The man reveals a bleeding purple electric rat, and Gao Peng's system flashes a danger warning for a conflicting variation. Gao Peng demands to know what the creature ate, and the man admits he fed it a blood jade Ganoderma to trigger an evolution. As the man begs for help, Gao Peng's system explains that the rat's electric and new blood attributes are conflicting, but following a specific recipe will turn the conflict into a successful evolution. Gao Peng orders Quan to gather the ingredients, tells the customer he has to pay for the materials, and promises the little rat that it will not fail. Mr. Ma and Sun Quan are horrified when Gao Peng prepares to evolve the purple electric rat. He holds a cleaver over the small creature and asks if there is a problem, which only panics them more. They watch in despair as the rat falls into a boiling pot. Gao Peng offers Mr. Ma a bowl of rat soup, but the man vehemently refuses. Gao Peng laughs, explaining that it is just a medical bath and heating it helps the familiar absorb the medication. He decides to let it simmer for another 10 minutes to ensure the rat gets the full benefit. Mr. Ma decides to let Gao Peng have a go since he might be an intermediate breeder. When the time is up, Gao Peng opens the pot. A sudden explosion rocks the treatment room as the newly evolved creature unleashes a pink energy beam. Checking the system, Gao Peng sees the purple electric blood mouse has reached level 20 at perfect grade and tells Mr. Ma it will advance to a commander tier with more training. Overjoyed, Mr. Ma apologizes for his doubts, and Gao Peng promptly hands him a bill for the consultation and the ruined room. Gao Peng then hands Xin Changquan a list of materials, asking her to send them to his house and deduct the cost from his pay. Mr. Ma eagerly asks to book him for tomorrow, offering triple the fee, but Gao Peng declines because he has classes. When Mr. Ma assumes it must be advanced breeder training, Gao Peng clarifies he just has regular high school classes and heads home to do his homework. Sun Quanyi is stunned, realizing that Tang bought the studio and fired everyone just to give Gao Peng a playground, never expecting him to be a genuine master. Elsewhere, Jihangwu inspects a core crystal and commands his spectral dragon to deliver it. A servant addresses her as Miss. The spectral dragon drops the orb through Gao Peng's window where Dazi spots it. Dazi eagerly snaps it up and chews happily, completely oblivious to Dumby manifesting behind it. When the centipede turns around, it is terrified by the skeletal figure. Walking home, Gao Peng calculates that Dumby has enough food to reach epic grade, but worries about finding a level 10 electric monster core crystal for disease evolution, unaware his centipede just ate one. He despairs that he will never be able to afford the core crystal, but a sudden noise sends him sprinting back to his apartment. Inside, he finds Dazi writhing on the floor, and a system prompt reveals the centipede is evolving after eating a Thunder Titan core. He asks Tang if she fed his familiar the expensive crystal, and she admits she kept it a secret because she knew he would refuse the gift. She then scolds him for leaving his groceries behind in his rush, and he heads back to his room for the night. After reprimanding Dazi for eating everything in sight, Gao Peng blends a purple poison flower into a potion to speed up the evolution process and feeds it to the creature. Dazi surges with energy, and the system confirms it has reached level 9 and excellent grade, leaving Gao Peng amazed at how easy it was. Dumby stares in shock at the centipede's new form, but Gao Peng reassures the skeleton that Dazi is just exhausted. He offers Dumby the yin cedar needles he bought, and the ghoul ape swallows the food to form a red orb in its chest. Gao Peng decides to let Dazi stabilize before pushing for another evolution, and as he rests, the centipede happily drags a blanket over him. Watching from the doorway, Tang wonders if this peace is the calm before the storm, hoping Gao Peng grows up quickly. The next morning at school, an angry man slams his hand on a desk, refusing to let untrained students bring their dangerous monsters to class. A man notes that students are considered kids in peacetime, but would be warriors in ancient times to protect the country, and an older man asks if the situation is really that tense. He warns the old principal that by the time they are ready to face the threats, it will be too late. Back at school, a classmate asks Gao Peng if he successfully became an intermediate monster breeder. Gao Peng wonders how they know, so a young man points out that his record-breaking achievement is in the newspaper. The class teases him about being a celebrity and making Li Zizhong miserable, because Li Zizhong's mother started forcing him to study after the exam. A student approaches Gao Peng with a presumptuous request, but Gao Peng tells him not to ask. He explains that voicing it will only put them both in a tight spot, leaving the student angry. Miran Chiyuye chases the students back to their seats to make an announcement. She clears her throat and announces that all schools will undergo urgent reforms, adding a familiar class and a new category for monster trainer cadets. She explains that exceptional cadets will get direct college admissions, so interested students should sign up for the armed forces training starting this afternoon. The students wonder if the sudden reform is because of the tense situation at the town outskirts. Miran Chiyuye calls Gao Peng outside to praise his certificate and asks him to address the new students tomorrow. Gao Peng declines because giving a speech is too high profile for him. He then tells her he wants to apply as a monster trainer cadet, but she warns him it might not be beneficial. As a device beeps, she explains his exceptional grades and certificate guarantee entry to top colleges, so he should use his literary results first, instead of rushing into combat training. Gao Peng thanks her for suggesting the safer route, but insists he needs real-life combat to grow stronger at a quicker pace. He reassures her he will take both exams, so she affectionately calls him a rascal and accepts his decision. He decides that if they don't have enough money, they can simply earn more. That afternoon, seniors are cheered on as Tan Zhenjin spots Gao Peng at the selection round and asks why he is registering when his grades are already good. Tan enthusiastically declares he is doing it to partner with the strongest monster breeder, and Gao Peng asks what he would do if the strongest breeder is male. Tan complains about Gao Peng's logic and tells him to hurry to the field. The students gather around an armored fighting vehicle as a woman introduces Colonel Chen, prompting a student to wonder if this muscular man is their new instructor. Colonel Chen unleashes a menacing stare, shocking the student with his strong killing intent. The colonel commends their bravery, but warns that without an iron will, they will piss their pants and tremble in shock when they face a real wild monster. The crowd shouts back that he is looking down on them. The instructor challenges the students' resolve and brings out his large wolf. A soldier reports that the 10-centimeter thick Type 3 armor plate is ready, and the instructor gives the order to proceed. He orders his beast to go, and it rushes to strike the target. The students stare in stunned silence because the beast shatters the thick barrier in a single hit. The instructor warns them that future wild monsters will be just as strong, offering them one last chance to leave. Many students walk away, and the instructor yells at them for keeping their heads down. He assures the departing students they made a rational decision and tells them to return to class to study well. But he turns to those who stayed and warns them that if they give up from now on, they will be treated as true deserters. Later, Gao Peng collapses onto his couch, exhausted by how unexpectedly strict the training turned out to be. Stripey complains of hunger as Gao Peng contemplates Colonel Chen's warning that only 1,200 students will remain within a month. He opens his stash and panics because almost all of his yin cedar needles are missing. Dazi eagerly snitches that Dumby ate them, so Gao Peng sighs and tells the skeleton to just ask for food next time, before turning it to face the wall. Checking his interface, he calculates Dumby needs 300 kilograms of needles and notes the skeleton's appetite will trigger an evolution soon. He worries about the burning cost of upgrading a perfect grade monster. He groans that he also has to buy 100 kilograms of thunder figs for Dazai, and that feeding a family is too difficult. Stepping outside, Gao Peng watches people struggling to control their chaotic familiars and wonders if the zoo opened its gates. He spots a ridiculously large pig blocking the building's main entrance and asks its owner to move it, startling the woman. The girl reminisces about how her pet pig has grown, completely misunderstanding the complaint. A man points out that the instructor has arrived to deal with the familiar, blocking the road. The instructor orders Ah Yin to step in. Ah Yin confronts the pig, which leaves the girl startled. The instructor asked if the show was over so they can begin training immediately. He announces that today's training focuses on commanding their familiars, because a strong familiar means nothing if it ignores orders. Using the embarrassed girl as an example, he explains that they must understand their familiar's habits to build a proper relationship. He shares that he personally fed and slept next to a silver moon wolf, so it would rely on him and follow instructions. He adds that they spent months training its tail to give it another attack method. He asks Lao Li to demonstrate his own silver moon wolf, explaining that even the same species develops differently based on training methods. Lao Li unleashes his beast to attack. Gao Peng is shocked by the creature's terrifying bite strength. A woman explains that familiars fall into 5 functional types and can be trained for multiple roles. The instructor advises them to start with softer materials like wood blocks, which are already prepared. As the students collect their materials, Gao Peng wonders how to improve Dazi's defense, because their blood contract means any injury his familiar suffers transfers to him. He spots an ape carrying a box and remembers reading about the boxing ape. He recalls that young boxing apes are trained to hit trees repeatedly to harden their skin. By the time they grow up, their muscles and scars form an armor-like shield that protects them from any impact. Gao Peng decides to use this exact method to increase Dazi's defense. He calls Dazi over and warns his familiar that this training method will cause some suffering. He promises to be gentle, but immediately strikes Dazi with a hammer. Dazi tries to flee, so Gao Peng chases it down while insisting this is all for its own good. He eventually catches the centipede, complaining that his own arm is about to dislocate from the effort. A week later, Gao Peng turns off his morning alarm and decides to sleep in because he has no training today. He is startled awake when Dazi bangs on a metal object, so he hurriedly promises to make breakfast for the hungry familiar. Gao Peng flips pancakes and complains that, while Dazi and Dumby have both reached level 10, he is the one suffering through chores to feed them. Gao Peng's phone rings, and a spectral hand answers the call. The caller introduces himself as Liu Senlin, the general manager of Blue Shield Protection Company, and asks to meet in person to discuss a highly beneficial deal. Later, at the studio, Sun Kongquan directs Gao Peng to the reception room where he greets manager Liu. Liu invites him to become their monster breeder consultant, but Gao Peng wonders why a large corporation would choose him over Chang'an City's advanced breeders. Liu explains that Director Chen is busy running the association and Guxian Lin works for the government, adding that he trusts Gao Peng more than the other intermediate breeders. Gao Peng sets strict conditions to protect his time, demanding his school hours remain undisturbed and refusing to sign an exclusive contract. Liu agrees and hands over a surprisingly generous contract, offering a 500 alliance credit salary and commissions with no mandatory constraints, which Gao Peng happily signs. Sun Kongquan knocks to announce Mr. Ma's arrival, prompting manager Liu to express his thanks and take his leave. In the elevator, Liu calls his uncle to report the signed contract, privately questioning why they had to hire this specific breeder. Back in the treatment room, Gao Peng examines Mr. Ma's Begonia semperflorens sprite, noting the materials needed to promote the rare flora familiar to excellent grade. Mr. Ma explains he wants to evolve it to win a Flower King contest, leaving Gao Peng secretly jealous that someone would waste such a rare therapeutic monster on a beauty pageant. Mr. Ma admits it is unusual for a man to enter, but he wants to give his second familiar a good start so it can be happy. He begs Gao Peng to help it win, and Gao Peng confidently tells him to leave it to him. Gao Peng reminds him of the studio's triple charge rule and collects the payment. He orders Sun Kongquan to gather the necessary tree essence and flower dew, which he quickly prepares from the shop's stock. Gao Peng kicks them out of the room so he can work, and Sun Kwang prevents Mr. Ma from peeking inside. Alone with the sprite, Gao Peng prepares a syringe and promises it will only hurt for a little while. Inside the room, Gao Peng plunges the syringe into the frightened plant creature. Outside, Sun Quan keeps Mr. Ma in a tight headlock so he does not interrupt the process, until Gao Peng finally calls them in. Gao Peng presents the newly evolved level 4 Begonia semperflorens sprite. Mr. Ma wraps him in a tight hug to thank him, though Gao Peng quickly asks him to let go. Elsewhere, Mu Tiang kneels beside her defeated rhino and laments another failure. Other students decide to slack off and treat the month as a holiday because the exam odds are too low. She refuses to quit and sets off to find Gao Peng for help. Deep in the forest, a swarm of dark spiders descends upon the local creatures, trapping them in thick webs. Back in the city, Gao Peng visits Boss Chen to buy yin cedar needles, but the shopkeeper warns him they are almost out of stock. Boss Chen explains that a swarm of spiders recently overran the outskirts, eating the plants and forcing the military to seal off the forest. Another customer pulls Boss Chen away. Gao Peng pieces the clues together, realizing that the military's sudden cooperation with the academy and this new spider threat means a major crisis is approaching. Manager Liu calls him to the Blue Shield Protection Company building to deliver urgent news. Liu explains that the government has drafted private companies to fight the new spider threat, and their team deploys in 3 days. He asks Gao Peng to evolve their devil mantises before the mission, because stronger familiars are their only chance of surviving the expedition. As Lu leads him inside, he admits the government is finally desperate enough to rely on private forces, making this a crucial opportunity for their company. A man in a suit shows Gao Peng a group of devil mantises, promising high compensation if he can evolve them. Gao Peng promises not to let Manager Lu down, though observers doubt his abilities since he barely looks 20 and is just wandering around touching the creatures. Manager Lu bets his whole career on the young man as Gao Peng selects 10 mantises. Gao Peng orders a laboratory prepared with insect enhancers, crystal nuclei, and star steel powder. The staff are stunned by his speed and accuracy, realizing he picked the 10 best familiars in just 10 minutes. Gao Peng gets to work in the lab. Soon after, the experiment succeeds, and the creature evolves. The result is a perfect evolution into a Commander-tier 4-winged Jade Devil Mantis, and Manager Lu is thrilled to have found such a treasure. Later, during training, Gao Peng times disease speed and rewards him with a mealworm for beating his previous record. He watches the other students fool around, agreeing with the instructor's policy to only help those who work hard. His tall classmate Mu Tiang approaches him to form a group for the upcoming mock battles, admitting she finds the other students incapable. When Gao Peng asks about her familiar, she calls out her level 12, Iron Rhinoceros, Lotus Seed. Yao Peng and Daza are startled by its size, but Mu Tiang explains the beast is timid, though its high pain tolerance makes it an ideal defender. Seeing through his system that Lotus Seed is a rare, perfect-grade monster, Gao Peng realizes a defender is exactly what Dazi needs to create tactical attack opportunities. Nu Tiang assumes Gao Peng is hesitating because Lotus Seed isn't fit for battle, deciding it wouldn't be fair to him. But Gao Peng accepts her invitation, explaining that being gentle isn't a problem since she can train Lotus Seed later, and he agrees that communicating with slackers is exhausting. Thrilled, Mu Tiang joyfully spins Gao Peng around in circles. Later, military personnel and voluntary organizations gather at an open field near the Dark Ember Forest, where Manager Lu greets Captain Song Si. Manager Lu notes that Captain Song Si's team is favored to win because the brutal gray devil spiders they are hunting are afraid of fire. Captain Song Si replies that Manager Lu's devil mantis is a forest killer, sparking a tense rivalry between them over who will complete the mission first. A military officer briefs the groups, reminding them that the brutal gray devil spiders hunt prey to feed their matrix, which will produce a tremendous spider tide once it receives enough food. While a woman expresses shock over sudden changes in her data, the group worries about fighting over the rewards, though Manager Lu advises patience. The military initiates the mission, ordering their forces to fire on the perimeter. Manager Lu grumbles that the military is just showing off to scare them, but another man explains the fire formations are meant to weaken the monsters. A woman marvels that the military deployed 8 Commander-tier familiars, while a man laughs that the other organizations are hiding their true aces. Suddenly, a wailing sound echoes through the forest, and a subordinate warns Manager Lu that his devil mantis is terrified. An ape with a red horn bursts from the trees, and the crowd realizes it is a lord monster, the Lord of the Dark Ember Forest. The beast roars, sending the crowd scattering in panic as officers scream for order. A military officer calls them useless, just as a golden bird-like creature descends, which the crowd identifies as the golden deity. The fiery bird blasts the ape with flames, forcing the lord monster to whimper and retreat, leaving the crowd relieved to be alive. The military warns the organizations to act quickly since they can only offer limited help, prompting the various guards and employees to rally. The officer complains that the military could solve this alone, but his superior explains that involving non-governmental organizations is necessary to prepare for the future. The expedition teams advance into the dark, web-filled cavern, watched by hidden eyes. Deep in the caves, the hunters unleash their familiars against the swarm. But a subordinate warns her captain that they will soon expend all their energy because there are simply too many enemies. The captain orders a new formation to conserve stamina, placing defense familiars at the front and offense on the flanks. When the enemy spiders attack, the hunters command their thorny flower demon to use its armor before countering with fire. The captain praises the new technique because it defeats the spiders with minimal energy expenditure. Below them, soldiers struggle to maintain formation against the swarm, while Lu Senlin and his team note that the broodmother has weak combat strength because she only exists to produce offspring. Lu Senlin rallies his team to attack her legs and promises to split the spoils fairly, based on the damage they deal. They realize a crystal film protects her eyes, so they increase their attack pace to break through. Watching the stalemate from above, the captain decides they must head down to help, because otherwise the military will deduct their contribution points. The broodmother begins acting erratically, but the moment her eye protection falls, the men order their insectoid familiar to strike. The creature unleashes an attack that leaves the hunters screaming and bleeding from their ears. Lu Senlin recoils in shock as a Lord Halo appears, realizing the intelligence about her low combat strength was completely wrong. A hunter realizes they just disrupted the monster's evolution at the peak of the command tier, and he tells his companion to run, because they can no longer handle the fight. Hours later outside the cave, the military commanders spot a figure returning early and order their men to prepare for battle. A lone survivor rides out on an insect and surrenders to avoid being shot, prompting the commanders to ask where the others are. Ru Senlin grabs an official by the collar, furious that the government sent them to fight a spider evolving into the lower tier, and explains they could only watch as their comrades were slaughtered. He reveals they lost all their apex familiars just trying to escape, prompting the military commander to confront the researchers about their flawed data. A man reappears in the forest, and a survivor asks if a Spider King followed him out. The captain welcomes Lao Li back, and Lao Li apologizes for failing to protect Ai Li and Ah Ling. The soldiers regret sending a small force, but an officer wants to capture the spider to increase their military strength. Another man explains the Spider King has no value because its evolution failed. Later, a bystander's dog barks as they mock Dazi. Yao Peng complains that normal monster corpses are worthless now, as they barely earn enough to feed Dumby. He decides to evolve Dumby and Dazi to Lord Tier, so he can increase his hunting success and pass the Advanced Monster Breeder assessment in Yanjing. Dumby has reached level 14, but sits by the refrigerator, because the yin cedar needles are already gone. Dazi has reached level 13. A woman hands Gao Peng a notebook on defense familiars, which he uses to plan a strategy for Mu Tiang, by focusing on iron will over physical defense. Gao Peng pats Mu Taiying on the shoulder and tells her it is not easy for her. An announcement gathers the students, and an official disqualifies several contestants, causing the crowd to protest. The instructors explain they watched the students slack off, pointing out that Xie Jiangyi played on his phone and Hu Latong napped. An instructor warns that they must take basic training seriously, because the second stage involves real battles where carelessness could kill their familiars. One student boasts his poodle will destroy the monsters, while another argues his yellow-tailed scorpion is superior. The students are told to form groups of 5, and several immediately try to join Gao Peng's team. Instructor Zhang Renbai introduces himself as the leader for their practical training. A level 9 normal grade steel spiny boar waits behind bars. 2 students ask to change targets, so the instructor offers a level 10 excellent grade hairless blood hyena instead. Gao Peng realizes the injured hyena is actually much more dangerous, so he volunteers to fight the boar first to stop the instructor from switching the monsters. Gao Peng steps forward with the Za as the boar snorts from its cage. Gao Peng commands Dazi to face the charging steel spiny boar. The centipede lunges and strikes the giant beast. Though Dazi seems outmatched, Gao Peng knows the boar's frantic attacks are only pumping the injected venom through its own bloodstream faster. The giant beast suddenly crashes to the dirt, leaving the other cadets shocked that Gao Peng's familiar won with poison. The instructor advises Gao Peng to limit Daz's venom so the centipede can actually learn to fight, and Gao Peng thanks him while praising his pet. When the instructor asks who will fight the sick boar next, a smug student sends in his yellow-tailed scorpion king to take advantage of its weakness. But the scorpion instantly collapses in the grass, poisoned. A classmate agrees with Gao Peng's assessment that the scorpion absorbed Dazi's lingering venom from the boar, poisoning itself because it lacks resistance. A chubby classmate laughs at the failure until he has to frantically wrestle his own dog familiar to stop it from eating garbage off the ground. As Gao Peng feeds Dazin antitoxin and fields questions from his peers, the instructor covers his face, exhausted by how hard this group is to manage. Later that evening at the apartment, Dumby repeatedly opens and closes the empty refrigerator. Gao Peng watches his ape familiar, finding it stupidly cute that Dumby thinks doing so will make food magically appear. Gao Peng's phone rings with a notification from the Monster Hunting Association that his order is ready. He excitedly waves down a delivery robot, relieved that the yin cedar needles he needs for Dumby's evolution have finally arrived. Nearby, 2 men observe him, confirming they have successfully tracked his delivery truck all the way from the warehouse. Their leader plots to rob Gao Peng tonight, scolding his younger brother for being scared and insisting they will be fine if they leave no evidence. The bruised younger brother begs him to stop hitting him, suggesting they just go case a bank instead. That night, the 2 thieves sneak along the apartment balcony, with the leader noting the rundown neighborhood proves their target is a nobody who will be easy to strike. As they try to pick a lock in the dark hallway, Gao Peng opens the door and asks what they are doing, forcing them to lie about not being able to see. The leader touches Gao Peng's head and asks for a drink, and he smiles while inviting them inside. The men share mischievous looks as they step in, mocking him with fake gratitude before locking the door behind them. When he asks why the door is locked, the leader claims he does not want to bother the neighbors. Gao Peng smiles and assures them his walls are made of special soundproofing material, so no one would hear a thing. The thieves freeze in terror as Dumby materializes behind him. Realizing they are trapped, the leader draws a knife and lunges forward with a furious shout. Dumby channels a surge of red energy that sends his weapon spinning away, leaving him clutching his bloodied hand. A second thief hurls his venomous porcupine to help, but the blue creature instantly catches it in its jaws and chomps down. The woman casually scolds her familiar for eating random garbage again. The third thief commands his bullet rat to fire projectiles, boasting that she won't be so arrogant now. He stares in disbelief as the smoke clears to reveal her completely unharmed, and she mocks them by saying they wouldn't understand even if she explained how. Elsewhere, 3 beaten men tremble as a woman calls Lao Chi to announce she has 3 trained volunteers ready to guard the border. Gao Ping recalls how back at the exam, 3 challengers were dismayed because they failed to break disease defense. Sometime later, Gao Peng checks a level 12 mutant water bear stats and considers contracting it to be his 3rd familiar. He knows they are extremely resilient but decides against it because a purely defensive familiar will not cooperate well with the Z and Dumby. During a training session, Gao Peng praises Lotus Seed for its attack and warns Wei Tiang to stay back from the battlefield to avoid accidents. His phone vibrates with a call from Liu Senlin, who invites him to a meal to introduce him to some friends. Gao Peng finds the flattery suspicious, but agrees to meet at the school gate because Liu Senlin's company needs a skilled breeder after their recent losses. After school, Gao Ping gets into Liu Senlin's car, where Liu Zhaoyu complains that her father is visiting her school too often. Liu Senlin asks Gao Peng to examine Zhao Yu's familiar, so Gao Peng checks the level 12 mint cat. Gao Peng tells them to visit his studio this weekend. Liu Senlin sends Zhao Yu home, which makes Gao Peng wonder why she cannot meet these friends. He asks who they are meeting, and Liu Senlin tells him he will find out when they arrive. Liu Senlin guides Gao Peng into a high-end, classical garden restaurant, showing Gao Peng that these friends are important people. Inside, Liu Senlin introduces Captain Songxi and Captain Jianggu, making Gao Peng realize everyone present represents a monster hunter team. The hunters stare at Gao Peng with doubt, making him uncomfortable. Liu Senlin tells everyone to eat, but Jianggu tells them to wait and asks if Gao Peng is unhappy about their abrupt arrival. Songxi warns Jianggu not to bully a student, so Liu Senlin quickly apologizes for not warning Gao Peng about the gathering. Jianggu toasts Gao Peng, claiming they want to consult him, but Gao Peng realizes they are hiding hostility behind their words and are not there for a simple lunch. Gao Peng realizes Liu Senlin is playing tricks to test him despite owing him a favor, so he decides to face this dangerous banquet head-on. A man questions his perfect evolution rate and asks if his skills are as good as his reputation suggests. Gao Peng credits his success to Examiner Fing, but the captains pressure him to evolve their familiars under the guise of friendship. He refuses the request because he is too new to the field to bear the responsibility if an accident happens. Liu Senlin offers to arrange a ride home, but Gao Peng reveals he has already called a cab. The captains dismiss Gao Peng as an arrogant child, while Liu Senlin claims he only meant well by inviting them. Captain John tells Liu Senlin that helping to corner Gao Peng repays his debt from the Dark Ember Forest, cutting ties with him completely. The muscular man calls Liu Senlin a sly old fox for setting up the boy who helped him. Back at his villa, Gao Peng watches a news report about a gene enhancement serum being recalled because it causes malignant mutations. His phone rings, and Liu Senlin apologizes for the captain's rude behavior. Gao Peng politely claims she is not angry, then hangs up before the manager can finish vowing revenge on his behalf. He blames himself for lacking the strength to tell them to scram, knowing he must play by their rules until he becomes powerful. The news highlights a college student who trained a commander-level familiar in 3 years, and Gao Peng vows to catch up. He blends a potion and tells Dumby to drink his medicine. 3 young women arrive at Flying Rose Studio, where receptionist Sun Quangkun asks if they have an appointment. Liu Zhaoyu wonders if Gao Peng's high fees are the reason his business looks so empty. Suddenly, the girls clutch their chests in terror as a skeletal figure engulfed in blue flames steps into view. Gao Peng checks the system interface and celebrates, because Dumby has evolved into a level 16 Skullghoul ape with a new blood-thread heart characteristic that can control targets. Realizing the skeletal ghoul is too conspicuous for the public, he asks Quangquin to find something to cover Dumby up, leaving her amazed at how fast he evolves his familiars. Gao Peng recognizes Liu Zhaoyu and wonders if manager Liu sent his daughter to test him, because he previously hung up on the man. When Zhaoyu asks Uncle Gao to look at her familiar, he tells her to drop the title, since they are the same age, and states his standard fee of 60 credits. Knowing she is unaware of her father's scheming, Gao Peng decides not to bully her and offers to cover the upgrade material fee himself. Zhaoyu notices her mint cat is missing, only to find it hiding in the corner because Dumby terrified it. Gao Peng asks about her friend's floating jellyfish, and the girl explains it is a levitating jellyfish used as a portable purse because of its extra-dimensional space. She mentions a wholesaler selling them at Ruka Square, giving Gao Peng a lead on his third familiar. Later at Wu Square, a merchant advertises the floating creatures to an excited crowd before Gao Peng steps up and asks to see the levitating jellyfish. He tells the merchant he wants to see all of them so he can pick one himself, and a curtain is pulled back to reveal the stock. Gao Peng learns that levitating jellyfish mutated during the cataclysm but almost went extinct because they were weak prey. An expert explains they only survive because they taste awful, which Gao Peng notes is a lucky trait. Browsing his shock, he sees that most jellyfish are only level 1 or 2 until one catches his eye. He wonders why this particular blue jellyfish is much more active than the rest. When the vendor tries to sell it as a jellyfish king, Gao Peng calls out the exaggeration and offers 50 alliance credits. The vendor instantly accepts the transfer and offers future discounts. Gao Peng realizes he overpaid, but he smiles because he knows he still got a bargain. His system confirms it is an excellent grade level 4 monster, so he names the balloon-like creature Silly and celebrates completing his team. Back home, he introduces Silly to Dazai, who completely freezes in shock. Gao Peng stares at his pet, wondering when it learned to feel jealous. He calls Dazai ungrateful, then tries to appease it by offering its favorite mealworms. He adds that he paid 301 credits for an Electric Commander core crystal just to help it level up. Instead of being thankful, Dazai curses at him and demands the food. Angry that his pet learned to curse, Gao Peng beats the centipede into a dizzy stupor. Later, he channels his mental energy to form a blood contract with Silly. He stops when he feels the creature's weak consciousness and insecurity, deciding he needs to build their friendship first so he does not feel like a kidnapper. To lower its guard, he decides to take Silly to school with him. The next morning, Mu Tiang greets him and asks if that is a hat on his head. Another girl mocks the ugly hat, making Gao Peng suddenly remember something important. Mu Tiang asks about the hat, so Gao Peng explains it is Silly, a space familiar. She asks to be a scene today's training monster, and they look at the purple metal scorpion. Other students hope to learn from his moves, but Gao Peng steps back to give them a fair chance at the first win. A boy volunteers as Dragon Chicken, and Gao Peng calculates its level 11 status is just enough to test the scorpion's strength. Gao Peng catches Dazai drooling and orders it to study the scorpion's attack patterns, because it will be fighting next. The instructor signals the start, and the scorpion immediately pierces the chicken with its tail. A student points out the chicken is lucky the scorpion is not venomous. The chicken lands a strike, and the boy cheers their victory. Gao Peng warns that the fight is not over, and the boy screams in shock as the scorpion retaliates. The monster strikes the bird directly between the legs, making the male students grab themselves in pain. The instructor intervenes with a silver moon wolf, forcing the scorpion to drop the defeated bird. The boy chases his fleeing familiar across the field. The instructor asks who is next after they complained about his bias, prompting them to suggest students with good grades go first. The instructor calls on Gao Peng, who sends Dazai into the cage to face the scorpion. Mu Tiang suspects the scorpion is hiding a trump card, so Gao Peng clenches his fist, placing his faith in Dazai. Dazai lands a decisive strike, and Mu Tiang congratulates him. In the training arena, a monster launches a fierce energy attack against its target. The strike sends a candidate reeling from the heavy impact. Another creature delivers a finishing blow, and 2 students cheer their success. Gao Peng notes the severe injury on the target and confidently tells Silly they have this handled. A student brags that everything went exactly as he expected, though he admits his hands were sweating from the nerves. Colonel Chen asks Gao Peng to recall Dazai, because the centipede is eating their training opponent and ruining it. Dazai eagerly devours the prey, splattering green slime everywhere as it hisses. The other students watch in fear, wondering if the familiar is truly tamed. Gao Peng whistles to call his familiar back from the field. Dazai rushes over, scattering the terrified students out of its path to avoid being crushed. Gao Peng wipes the slime off Dazai and scolds it for eating weird things, warning it might get a stomachache. He tells Dazai that mealworms are a much better food source. Some students grumble about Gao Peng's arrogant attitude. Mu Tiang tells Gao Peng not to mind them, as they are just spooked by Dazai. She notes they only feel sympathy for the caged monsters because Colonel Chen's silver moon wolf protects them. Gao Peng agrees, wondering if wild monsters would ever show them the same mercy. Colonel Chen scolds the complaining students to drop out if they treat training like a tea party. He applauds Gao Peng's realistic mindset. Colonel Chen announces that basic training is over, so they can apply for the outfield base for 5 alliance credits. The students buzz with excitement over the real battle experience, though Gao Peng notes the high expense. He realizes this setup mimics the first trial. When students complain about the fee, Lao Li suggests they find a private base instead, He reminds them that a private base charges 20 Alliance credits just for entry. Defeated, one student decides he has to borrow the money from his father. Lao Li explains that the Alliance military will cover all fees if they sign an 8-year service contract. Gao Peng realizes the government's policy is smart because it secures soldiers without forcing enlistment. Lao Li adds one final condition, warning them they must buy death insurance to apply. A student asks if getting the insurance means she will die during the special training. Lao Li sighs and says her lack of intelligence might actually get her killed. The rest of the class bursts out laughing. Mu Tiang turns to Gao Peng and asks if he wants to go together tomorrow. Gao Peng fist bumps her and says it would be his honor. Inside a moving vehicle, a pink-haired girl admires the high mountain and points out the wild familiars to her friends. The students yell in pain when the vehicle hits a stone, and Gao Peng realizes the driver pulled a trick on them because they were noisy. He remembers standing outside Tong's door earlier that morning, wondering if her silence is tied to the secret she hides from him. Another jolt throws a student, and 2 young men yell at the driver, who sarcastically apologizes for his bullying. The group arrives at the gated facility, where an instructor announces that the valley is their outfield training base and has been cleared of commander-tier monsters. He issues them ID watches with an emergency button, warning them they must survive for a week and cannot back out. When a student asks about supply points, the instructor explains there are metal safe houses containing food that only commander tiers can break. The recruits decide to find a safe house first so they can prove themselves. The instructor urges them to hurry, noting that the GPS will help the military avenge them if they get eaten. Later, Mu Taiying asks Gao Peng what he is looking at, and he explains he sees a rain sparrow, a bird that flocks to wet habitats. She adds that weather towers keep them because they are fast. As a bird takes flight, Mu Taiying praises him for observing the scenery while everyone else rushes in, noting that his academic success comes from his unique state of mind. They agree to set off, though Gao Peng pauses because he thinks he sees a figure hiding by the trees. On day 1, Gao Peng and Mu Taiying begin their trek through the forest. They examine the strange plants and follow the mountain path. Mu Taiying spots a camouflaged metal hut and suggests they investigate, so they open the door to the safe house. Inside, she looks at the single bunk bed and realizes the instructors provided limited beds to prevent the recruits from flocking together. Gao Peng agrees, explaining that large groups would defeat the purpose of the training since less than 5% of the valley's monsters are elite tier. He notices the boxes of biscuits and water bottles on the bed. Realizing the military left enough rations for a week to prevent casualties from students hunting for food. Mu Tiang suddenly appears in full armor and asks Gao Peng if he is going to change, which startles him. Mu Tiang warns him about the jungle's poisonous mosquitoes, so Gao Peng promises to use medicinal herbs before suggesting they hunt for fresh food to avoid eating compressed biscuits all week. Mu Tiang praises his planning, noting they can use lotus seed to clear the path and retreat to their safe house if problems arise. Gao Peng suggests finding a water source because the surrounding area will act as a natural hunting ground. The thick smell of vegetation and decay makes Mu Tiang dizzy, and she flinches when a strange purple mist appears. Gao Peng grabs her arm to silence her. He tells her to have lotus seed ram a nearby tree, and though she sees nothing special, she trusts his school record enough to follow the order. She commands lotus seed forward, and the rhinoceros crashes into the trunk. The impact knocks a camouflaged snake out of the branches to the ground. Mu Tiang thanks him and asks what the creature is, so Gao Peng explains it is a green tree snake, warning that humans cannot eat it because its flesh contains trace poison. Gao Peng realizes his blood contract with Daza transfers harm and poison resistance to his familiar, making him wonder if the snake would taste better if it were more poisonous. A sudden snap startles him, but he assumes he misheard as a surviving snake cowers nearby. Mu Tiang calls him over to a running stream, and Gao Peng smiles because having clean water greatly increases their chances of surviving the week. Near the water, a sudden foul odor hits Gao Peng. His system identifies a level 2 green-skinned frog that likes spitting saliva but hates being spit at, prompting Gao Peng to decide they must cleanse the pond. The frog spits saliva on him, leaving him in stunned silence while it croaks happily. Gao Peng spits right back at the creature to prove a frog cannot outplay him. The frog cries out in distress, summoning a swarm of frogs from the water. Mu Tiang is shocked by the numbers, while Gao Peng realizes they are surrounded by eyes in the dark. Mu Tiang asks why Gao Peng's expression suddenly changed, just as a frog creature prepares to fire an energy blast. So Gao Peng grabs her and yells to run. Lotus Seed charges after them as they sprint away to escape the centipede monster. They collapse on the grass to catch their breath. Mu Tiang cannot believe she had to flee from frogs, but Gao Peng warns her that a swarm of thousands is deadly when they group together. Beside them, Lotus Seed cries tearfully, traumatized by the terrifying event. Gao Peng initiates a serious conversation about their situation, reviewing the topography they scouted to determine their next move. When Mu Tiang asks if they should expand their search range, Gao Peng cheerfully announces they should head back and prepare dinner, leaving her confused. He tells her not to overexert herself on the first day, and when they discuss finding food, he reveals a green tree snake he caught earlier, along with several gathered condiments like blue-black grass. Mu Tiang is shocked and asks where he stored all these items, so Gao Peng explains that wilderness survival requires always being prepared. Meanwhile, in a control room, soldiers observe their camera feed. They confirm Gao Peng matches the target description and note that thinking about food while fleeing shows a strong survival instinct. An instructor warns them not to underestimate the student, pointing out that Gao Peng's mastery of survival skills already exceeds the other teams and orders his men to keep a close eye on him. Later, Gao Peng and Mu Tiang arrive at a safe house, but when Mu Tiang tries the handle, she realizes it is locked from the inside. Gao Peng knocks on the camouflage door and asks the occupants to let them in, explaining that they do not mind sleeping on the floor because it is already dark outside. But a voice from inside tells them to scram and find someplace else before sunset. After a woman warns them to be careful, Gao Peng stops an angry Mu Tiang, telling her it is not worth getting mad because someone will eventually teach those people a lesson. Mu Tiang sighs in agreement and tells Lotus Seed to move out. She notices Gao Peng heading back to the safe house and asks what he is doing, only to be shocked when he pulls out a heavy metal chain. Gao Peng smiles and explains he took it to reinforce their door for safety before leading the way into the forest. As they walk through the woods with Daza, the instructors watch them on a monitor and chuckle. The men laugh and praise Gao Peng's ingenuity, calling him as clever as a monkey. An instructor observes that he is stronger than the average student. Out in the wilderness, Gao Peng decides they need to find a safe house because there are monsters everywhere. As night falls, a figure declares that they must die before a black creature emerges from the shadows. Unable to find a cave, Gao Peng suggests they build a simple shelter on a large tree trunk instead of risking further exploration. Mu Tiang agrees, and Lotus Seed slams into the tree to knock down branches for them to use. Once the shelter is finished, Mu Tiang sighs in relief, only to realize Gao Peng has already fallen fast asleep. Seeing that Diza and Lotus Seed are also resting peacefully, she puts her things away and decides to get some sleep herself. From the shadows, a female instructor watches them, noting how careless they are to camp without lighting a fire or setting night shifts. She decides to teach them a lesson, but suddenly hears a branch snap and notices something heading their way. Recognizing the attacking creature as a dark shadow panther, she decides to stay hidden, figuring Gao Peng can handle it since the monster isn't very strong. A dark panther lunges, and Mu Tiang wakes up startled as her iron rhinoceros, Lotus Seed, charges forward in a panic. Someone shouts to jump as Lotus Seed crashes into a tree, and Gao Peng urgently tells Mu Tiang to look ahead. They spot a shadowy monster in the branches and debate whether to fight or flee, knowing its power peaks at night. Gao Peng checks its stats, identifying it as a level 15 normal grade dark shadow panther, and warns that running will only trigger its predatory instincts. The panther strikes with incredible speed, so Gao Peng shouts for Dazi to intercept it. Dazi blasts the panther with yellow lightning to paralyze it, proving to Gao Peng that their training has paid off. Dazi strikes the panther, leaving it wounded and panting before a snake looms behind the cat. The giant snake lunges with its mouth wide open, shocking Gao Peng into yelling for everyone to run. The snake watches them flee, and Tang Tang emerges from the shadows, telling the beast it is tactful for ignoring Gao Peng, as fighting would have blown her cover. Elsewhere, a soldier asks if they should eliminate the mutant giant jungle anaconda, but the instructor refuses, explaining the gentle creature is just another trial for the students. The commander agrees that anyone who cannot handle this trial should give up, but he still orders the Golden Condor team to stand by for emergency rescues. The next day, Gao Peng tells his classmate it is time to depart. When she asks where they are going, he explains they need to return to yesterday's campsite to retrieve the items they left behind in their hurry. She warns him that going back is too dangerous because they do not know the giant jungle anaconda's weaknesses. Gao Peng replies that failing to collect information is exactly why they must go back, as understanding monsters is a skill that might save their lives. He reminds her that their world has changed, so staying in safe areas will only make her weaker. She runs after him, asking if he plans to ride Dazi away when they encounter a monster. Gao Peng tells Dazi not to be angry, since the centipede really cannot transport people. Back at the site, they look at the destroyed trees and realize they barely escaped. While his classmate goes to look around, Gao Peng discovers a wood space heart hidden inside a broken tree trunk. He realizes this space attribute material is a key ingredient for his familiar's evolution, and that the giant jungle anaconda only grew so large because it was eating them. He stores the crystal in his bag and decides to use this field training to find more rare ingredients. The training continues until the 7th day, when the instructor congratulates the students and announces a 3-day holiday. He adds that the next combined training will be in 3 weeks, and attendees of this one can join for free. The students celebrate and check their phones to contact their families, and Gao Peng prepares to message Tong. He suddenly stops when he sees news of a locust swarm. Meanwhile, back in Chang'an City, news broadcasts report on a battle in the north. A reporter announces that the military has stopped a swarm of billions of 30-centimeter dead leaf locusts. Director Feng Xiu explains that the military succeeded by using the locusts' extreme fear of fire. Watching the broadcast from his home with his familiars, Gao Peng realizes the situation is dire. Director Feng calls Gao Peng to offer him a paid job because the military just sent over a batch of new voracious golden toads and wants the association to promote their grades. The men wonder how Gao Peng knows about the military's secret plans. Feng explains that shooting the locusts is inefficient, so the military wants to use the laws of nature, and Gao Peng realizes that using the locusts' natural enemies is a solid strategy. When Feng asks if he wants to join the research, Gao Peng agrees on the condition he is paid with a commander-tier electric-type monster core crystal. Feng says it is normally forbidden, but promises to secure it through his military connections. The next day, Gao Peng arrives at the association building, where Feng greets him personally. As staff whisper about Gao Peng's identity, Feng admits he stayed up all night studying the toads but still cannot make sense of them. They head down into the research center, where Feng shows Gao Peng a caged voracious golden toad and explains they evolved from horned frogs. An assistant hands Gao Peng fennel-scented grilled locust skewers to feed the monster. But Gao Peng eats one himself and praises the flavor. While Feng stares in shock, Gao Peng teases the angry toad, telling it he was only taste testing the food before handing over the rest. The toad eats the metal skewer along with the meat, and Gao Peng notes it must have a powerful stomach to digest metal. Feng says the military wants to improve the toad's defense and digestion, and explains his tests show the toad's flesh accepts fire orchid vine extract, but the plant's fire attribute is too gentle. Gao Peng realizes the evolution path just needs a modified formula, so he tells Feng they should treat the toad like meat and the vines like seasoning, meaning they need a stronger ingredient or higher heat. As Feng questions the cooking analogy, he wonders if they really just need a stronger ingredient or more heat. Gao Peng suggests Director Feng try red-faced demon chilies, so Feng Xiu immediately orders Xia Sheng to fetch a batch from the warehouse. As Xia Zheng retrieves the chilies, another breeder questions if this cooking-like method really came from the city's youngest monster breeder. Feng Xiu processes the potent chili and orders Xia Sheng to gather more supporting ingredients. Gao Peng knows they need more items, but decides to wait for the experiment's result because speaking up now would be too deliberate. Feng Xiu completes the evolution solution and injects it into a sample of the toad's flesh. The flesh suddenly explodes, blasting the men with a violent spray of blood. Declaring it a failure, Feng Xiu instructs Xia Sheng to test the remains, and the student confirms the explosion was caused by conflicting fire energies. A breeder declares the experiment a total failure because the energies completely failed to merge. Feng Xiu refuses to give up, demanding more ingredients because they need more data. The second and third experiments both end in violent explosions. The breeders begin to suspect the formula is flawed and that Gao Peng's skills are over-exaggerated. Smiling confidently, Gao Peng proposes using 2 main ingredients and asks them to trust him one more time. When Feng Xiu asks what the second ingredient is, Gao Peng suggests black soft soil to protect the toad's organs, along with sparrow saliva wood to balance the elements. Feng Xiu agrees to test the mutually reinforcing strategy. After testing the new mixture, Xia Zheng excitedly reports that the fire element has successfully assimilated into the flesh. Feng Xiu suggests moving on to live testing, because they will not know the true results until the toad consumes the ingredients. Gao Peng prepares the syringe, feeling sorry for the heavily anesthetized toad and promising to feed it locust skewers later. The injection causes the toad to sizzle, filling the room with thick, pungent smoke that leaves everyone coughing. Gao Peng announces that the ingredient ratios are correct, and tells the others they can wait outside while he finishes the routine steps. Feng Xiu insists on staying close to observe the reactions, while the other breeder steps out for fresh air. Stepping outside to cough, Gao Peng wonders if he acted naturally enough to hide the fact that he already knew the perfect formula. Inside the testing facility, a researcher coughs through the red fumes but declares the experiment a success. 2 officials watch the red creature manifest, noting that this extreme method was the only way to make it usable in time. Meanwhile, at the front lines north of Chang'an City, the 3rd Squadron prepares for battle as a swarm of flying insect creatures reaches District A. The commander orders his troops to deploy white phosphorus bombs, which successfully burn the swarm and prompt him to push the attack. However, an observer spots the insects gathering a sandstorm again. The sandstorm blows the incendiary bombs back at the soldiers, forcing the commander to frantically order a halt to the fire attacks while his men panic. A soldier reloads his rifle and orders his squad to shoot the bugs down, because they must protect the countless civilians behind them. Suddenly, a swarm of red, toad-like monsters tears onto the battlefield. The sandstorm abruptly stops, leaving the soldiers confused about where these giant toads came from. Another soldier corrects him, stating these creatures are specifically designed to fight off the locusts, right as the toads unleash fiery energy beams into the swarm. Gao Peng had told them to prove their gratitude through actions, and the toads obliged by engulfing the insects in a fiery explosion. A soldier watches in shock as the toads swallow over 100 giant locusts in a single strike, and he praises the creator for saving his comrades' lives. Later, in a city park, Lao Han tells an elderly woman that his granddaughter was eliminated from special training on the second day, just as a military vehicle speeds past them. Two observers notice a military jeep arriving because the men are looking for Gao Peng on the 6th floor. An elderly couple discusses seeing Gao Peng bring home a skeleton, so they ask Granny Chen if she has seen it since she lives right below him. Granny Chen tells them it is just his familiar, explaining that it is only there to protect them. She asks her spider to thread a needle, and when a neighbor asks why she never uses its name, she admits it does not have one. Gao Peng arrives to find guards saluting him. A soldier hands him a commander-tier electrotite monster core crystal because it is part of his deal with Director Feng. The soldier explains he took this delivery task just to meet Gao Peng. He salutes him on behalf of his fallen comrades, stating that soldiers only worry about dying a worthy death. Back inside, Gao Peng sighs. He decides he must participate in more experiments to help the front lines, but he needs to increase his own strength first to protect his secrets. Dazi approaches him. Gao Peng hugs the centipede and announces they will evolve him today because the main ingredient has finally arrived. Gao Peng boils the crystal into a soup and tells Dazi to drink it. The centipede drinks it down. The bowl shatters as Dazi unleashes a blast of electricity to evolve. Dumby appears and taps the dazed centipede. The skeleton gets an idea, reaches into the refrigerator to grab a plant, and offers it to Dazi to help him recover. Gao Peng pets Dumby and tells him to stop fooling around so Dazi can rest. Dumby makes confused chewing noises, so Gao Peng decides this is the perfect time to finalize his contract with Silly. He calls Silly over, watching it float silently in front of him. He decides to stop overthinking and offers it fruit juice to coax it into the bond. He realizes all his familiars are completely food-motivated. He initiates the bond, observing that Silly's consciousness remains very weak. However, he notices it is no longer timid as it willingly approaches him. Gao Peng offers the contract, promising Silly enough power to never fear anything again. Silly immediately rejects the power because it only wants fruit juice. Gao Peng sighs and promises to provide endless juice to seal the pact. The next morning, Grandma Chen is awakened by a familiar voice calling her for breakfast. She opens her eyes in confusion before realizing it is only her bird familiar imitating her late husband. She thanks it for keeping her alive, remembering how her husband used to care for her every day. She laments that he died before she could recover from her despair over losing their daughter. She thanks the bird for its company, but decides it is finally time to go find him. Her husband's spirit suddenly appears at her bedside, leaving her in tears. He takes her hand and they promise to never be separated again. Grandma Chen passes away peacefully as her familiar rests beside her. Back in his own room, Gao Peng is jolted awake by Daza screaming in pain. The loud cries startle him as he finds the centipede writhing on his bed. He grabs it in a panic, terrified that something went wrong with its recent evolution. He checks its mouth and realizes Dazi is just growing new teeth because the perfect great evolution altered its DNA. Relieved, he tells Dazi to endure the pain because it is a necessary part of growing stronger. He then calls Silly over, leaving Daza shocked that its master is ignoring its suffering. As Silly happily hubs his head, Gao Peng ponders whether to choose a support or a lethality evolutionary path for the jellyfish. Gao Peng contemplates evolving Silly into a wood spirit jellyfish to gain healing and spatial abilities. He hesitates because giving up a space-type monster's lethal potential for a support role feels displeasing. Then he realizes the lethal path would cost a fortune in energy and money. He decides the support path is quicker, reasoning that once he is stronger he can raise any familiar he needs. He finalizes his decision, confident that this is the best path forward. With his plan set, he prepares to head out for the day. Walking outside, Gao Peng hears a commotion as people point at the sky, shouting that a ghost has come to fetch Granny Chen. He looks up and sees a spirit manifesting in the air. The system identifies it as a guardian of the soul, a monster kept in the mortal realm by a strong obsession. A panicked man claims he saw two dead bodies turn into light and fly away, and asks if Granny Chen has passed away. Gao Peng remembers that Granny Chen owned an Earth Shield spider. He knows that familiars without masters can change their nature and attack humans. He runs back to the apartment building, desperate to find the spider before it hurts anyone. Finding Granny Chen's door locked, he deduces where the spider is hiding based on its nature. He spots the spider in the shadows and calls for Daza. Daza appears and startles the spider, while Gao Peng dashes forward. Catching the falling creature, he asks why it dropped the moment Daza scared it. He remembers Granny Chen telling the spider she would not form a contract because she was dying, and apologizing for leaving it nameless. Gao Peng asks the spider if it is sad and invites it to come with him. Bystanders watch this scene in confusion. Gao Peng walks away with his familiars as the crowd whispers, with one person calling him the head of the 5 poison sect. Gao Peng checks the system and finds an evolutionary pathway to turn the spider into a tank, noting that a meat shield is exactly what he lacks. In the elevator, he plans to establish a blood contract with the spider to gain more soul power. He calculates that with the soul power from Dazi and Silly, he will soon be able to form a blood contract with Dumby. He regrets promoting Dumby's grade so early because it makes collecting the required soul power much harder. Arriving at the studio, he looks for Sun Quanquan. At the studio, Sun Quanquan greets Gao Peng as Little Boss before scolding him for disappearing while customers demanded his services. He tries to calm her down by offering her milk tea if she prepares some ingredients, but she just huffs and walks away. Silly scoffs at him, leaving Gao Peng annoyed. Inside the laboratory, Gao Peng prepares to start the evolution process for his newly acquired spider. He carefully mixes the chemical solution, examining the components until the formula is successfully completed. He names the spider Stripey to match Silly and Dumby, explaining that the solution will make him stronger. The liquid is injected into the enclosure, and Stripey lunges forward as the evolution begins. Gao Peng feels a fraction of Stripey's intense pain through their soul connection, but he urges his familiar to endure it because pain is necessary to grow stronger. Sun Quanquan interrupts to announce that a wealthy-looking customer has arrived, so Gao Peng decides to take the job to earn money for his growing team. Gao Peng changes out of his disguise to meet the man and immediately scans his familiar, noting that it is a commander-tier monster. He instructs Xing Quan to monitor Stripey's evolution and add the final test tube when the liquid changes color, so he can handle the client. The client introduces himself as Lu Xie and explains that he needs help because Grey Devil spiders recently destroyed his herb garden in City East. Lu Xie reveals he sought Gao Peng out because Director Chen praised him at a military banquet as the key contributor to the Magma Fire Toad research. Lu Xie unveils his familiar to be strengthened, and Gao Peng immediately recognizes it as an Ebony Nighthound. As a rare alternate evolution for dog-type monsters, the Ebony Nighthound absorbs light and blends into darkness, making it a perfect assassin. Mr. Lu then asks Gao Peng to state his price for the commander-tier familiar evolution. Gao Peng narrows the possible evolutionary paths down to 13, and Mr. Lu decides to take the most expensive one. Gao Peng tells him the Ebony Nighthound evolution will cost 5,000 alliance credits, and he shakes the shocked man's hand to congratulate him on his decision. Suddenly, an explosion rocks the lab, and Gao Peng calls out for Stripey. A dark creature emerges from the smoke, and Sun Quan points in terror to alert Gao Tiyo to the giant spider. Gao Peng realizes that Stripey has successfully completed a wild evolution into a gray-armored spider. He scolds Stripey for breaking the equipment and scaring Quanquan, but then gently pets him, reminding him to control his new strength. The spider seems embarrassed and awkwardly backs away. Gao Peng briefly wonders why his familiars seem so silly, then instructs Stripey to wait quietly in his office. As the spider screeches, Gao Peng asks why the creature is crawling sideways. He asks Quan to order a larger container on his tab, and tells her to prepare the materials for the Ebony Nighthound's evolution next week, because the equipment is broken. He asks her to have the lab cleaned at his expense and decides to head home. Walking with his familiars, Gao Peng realizes his house is getting too crowded, so he decides to find a larger place on the outskirts to make training easier. He stares at a spider, wondering if he botched the evolution, and kicks Stripey, scolding him to walk like a spider instead of a crab. Stripey just makes a confused noise, leaving Gao Peng to sigh in frustration. Later, at a real estate agency, a salesperson named Xia Lu greets him. When Gao Peng asks to see some houses, she tells him they have a large villa on the outskirts that fits his requirements for a garden and clean surroundings. She hands him a tablet to show him pictures of the property, explaining that he can build his own basement on the surrounding land. A professional explains they can build a basement on the villa's property. Back at the agency, Gao Peng asks where the villa is located, and Xiaolo explains it is near prosperous Dragon Lake, and costs only 2,000 alliance credits because the secluded area has very little supervision. Gao Peng looks at the tablet seriously and asks if the pictures are up to date. Gao Peng deduces the photos are pre-cataclysm because the plants are not mutated, while the agent explains the secluded location is why it only costs 2,000 alliance credits. He suspects there are hidden safety problems, but decides any wild monsters would just become extra meals for his familiars. He laughs at the thought and agrees to visit the property since the seller is taking a loss. The agent is startled by Stripey, laughing awkwardly when Gao Peng explains it is just a spider. Gao Peng thinks he sees something, but dismisses his suspicions and heads out with her. As they leave, a spy with an eye patch watches from a corner, thrilled to have finally tracked down Gao Peng. They arrive at the property, and Gao Peng notices only the home's exterior wall is slightly worn. Finding the interior fully furnished, he concludes that selling the place for only 2,000 credits is far too suspicious. A mustachioed man suddenly appears in the doorway, introducing himself as Boss Liu and explaining he hurried over just to meet him. When Gao Peng asks if they know each other, Boss Liu praises him as Director Feng's ace and the hero behind the recent military action. He hands over a business card and offers a discount on familiars, leaving Gao Peng impressed by his smooth networking. Boss Liu pushes the convenience of the well-maintained villa, but Gao Peng demands to know why it is priced at half its 4,000 credit market value. Boss Liu explains he bought the home for his rural parents before a monster wave ruined everything. Mourning his parents, Boss Liu offers his villa to Gao Peng for just 2,000 alliance credits as an investment in the city's youth, and Gao Peng accepts. Back at his apartment, Gao Peng unpacks special nourishment for Dumby and Silly, telling his companions to dig in. Sister Tang drops by and excitedly pries does his mouth open to inspect its new teeth, while Gao Peng tells his centipede to just bear with it. She asks about the new villa and insists on helping with the renovations so he does not get scammed, leaving Gao Peng to wonder why the property was so cheap. Outside, Tang Tang smiles to herself, planning to buy the house next door so she can remain his neighbor. Later, Gao Peng heads out to the forest border with Dumby and Silly to search for bottle trees. He has to gather all the wood space heart materials today because his short vacation is ending and he cannot afford to delay. He suddenly spots a level 13 gray sand bobcat in the branches, realizing how dangerous the wilderness is if the very first monster he encounters is already this strong. Dumby prepares to act as Gao Peng warns everyone to be careful. When a gray sand bobcat lunges at them, Dumby throws Dazi out of the way to protect it. Dumby steps forward and unleashes a punch to crush the beast. Gao Peng observes that Dumby's strength has increased tenfold since its skull ghoul ape days. Shocked by how powerful it has become, because Dumby is not fought since evolving, Gao Peng decides he needs to train it more so it can control its new power. He tells the group to move on. As they walk, Gao Peng comforts an upset Daza, explaining that Dumby only threw it aside because it was in a hurry to protect them. Watching him, Dumby realizes Gao Peng is everything to it. After 3 hours of searching, they finally locate a grove of bottle trees, which Gao Peng notes are a preferred habitat for green tree snakes. Dumby snatches a snake from the air. It extracts a green tree snake core crystal and offers it to Gao Peng. Gao Peng accepts the token of appreciation, but reminds Dumby their main mission is to find wood space hearts. To find them, he instructs Dumby to break the bottle trees in the middle, and Dumby shatters one with a single punch. Gao Peng cheers Dumby on, telling him to keep breaking trees. On the other side of the forest, 3 men search for the kid their employers paid them to find. Their mouse, Familiar Tutu, hears a loud sound, so the captain decides to investigate. One of the men recognizes the sound as boxing practice. Yao Huan reminds Deng Sen to stay focused on the mission because they need the high payout for his sister's tuition. The captain leads them forward quietly to take a look. As Dumby strikes a tree, Yao Huan resolves to eliminate their target first. He finds the situation interesting, while the others are amazed the monster can break such a thick trunk with one fist. They confirm Gao Peng is their target and wonder what he is searching for inside the trees. The subordinates suggest leaving since they were only paid to scout, warning that the giant centipede looks dangerous. The captain shushes them, arguing they cannot keep scavenging dead bodies and must take this opportunity to advance. He suspects Gao Peng is finding hidden valuables in the trees, hoping they have hit the jackpot. He orders Deng Sen to hide and control Gao Peng, while he and Yao Huan take out Dumby. He checks his phone and plans to test Gao Peng first to see if they can finally get rich. Hearing movement, Gao Peng notices his familiars reacting and asks what is wrong. Shocked, he demands the intruders show themselves as Deze lunges forward. Realizing they are caught, the captain steps out to greet Gao Peng. He pretends they were just checking if Gao Peng needed help, but Gao Peng remains skeptical. Gao Peng recognizes their familiars are built for forest ambushes, confirming the men have bad intentions. Dumby spots another person hiding nearby. The captain claims it is just his brother and tells him to relax. Gao Peng checks the third man's familiar and realizes the level 18 mithril cockroach might be a rare variant. Gao Peng declines the stranger's help because Dazid can counter their threat. Dumby adds a warning about the kind of help they are offering. A subordinate asks if they are really leaving, and the older captain explains that attacking a young man with 2 familiars is too risky now that they have lost the element of surprise. The captain trusts his small familiar Tutu's intuition, noting that Dumby's aura terrifies it. He orders his men to retreat and wait, planning to scavenge the area after Gao Peng leaves to avoid an unnecessary fight. Gao Peng wonders if they would have attacked head-on without Dumby's warning, and questions if he would have fought back with the intent to kill. 2 hours later, Gao Peng gathers enough materials and calls Daza over to test his new method. Acknowledging his own lethal intent, Gao Peng tosses a spark onto the leaves to burn the evidence. He knows the resilient plants will prevent a forest fire and provide a convenient way to destroy the evidence. Watching the fire from a distance, the captain notes Gao Peng's extreme vigilance and realizes the boy possesses a decisive ruthlessness. Elsewhere, an operative reports the bandits' retreat to Dr. Zhang, calling the scouting mission a failure. Dr. Zhang smiles, stating the next phase is ready because he has finally found Jihan Wu's only grandson. Later, Gao Peng watches Stripey gorge itself on canned food, amazed at how quickly the spider has leveled up and grown. He picks up Stripey's shed skin, but finds it breaks easily. Disappointed it lacks any magical effects, he jokingly threatens to fry Stripey once it gets chubby, then warns the spider to eat less because the canned food will accumulate toxins in its body. Looking at Silly, Gao Peng notes he has gathered the wood space hearts for its evolution, but the jellyfish's weak constitution requires special preparation. Gao Peng activates the equipment in the empty studio, glad Sun Kuangwen left early so he can process the rare ingredients for Silly's evolution with acid and extreme heat. After blasting and blending the materials, he holds up the finished potion and hopes Silly will like the sweet fragrance. Silly excitedly mistakes the mixture for juice, and Gao Peng gestures for the jellyfish to enter the tank. Before Gao Peng can finish speaking, Silly dives in, leaving Gao Peng shocked to see his familiar turn completely green. He immediately regrets choosing the wood spirit jellyfish path, because Silly loves sitting on his head and he hates fluorescent green. He notes that the magical space sand needed for an epic grade is too rare, so perfect grade is the limit for now. He realizes his soul strength has increased considerably with the evolution, and calculates that he only needs a couple of days of effort to contract Dumby. He panics and tells the jellyfish to stay away, but soon sighs in defeat as Silly settles on his head. Later, his phone rings with a call from Manager Li, who claims variant plants are blocking the villa's renovations and asks Gao Peng to come approve the removal of some walls. Gao Peng finds it strange that the masters are working overtime for free, and questions why everyone is waiting for him on site at this hour. A panicked Manager Li begs him to hurry, so Gao Peng agrees to come over and ends the call. A man holds Manager Li by the throat, praises his acting, and threatens to kill the manager's son. Gao Peng finds the call highly suspicious, and since he cannot reach Tong, he decides to bring Dumby and Daza along as a precaution before rushing into the night. Half an hour later, the man's associate asks if Gao Peng noticed something is wrong, but the doctor says they just have to wait to meet Ji Hongwu's people. The doctor claims he prefers not to use violence, but admits someone secretly tipped him off that Ji Hongwu has a living grandson, a secret that would draw many assassins if it spread. When his associate asks why they do not just kill the boy, the doctor explains that Ji Hongwu surely has secret protectors watching him, so they will use the grandson as leverage instead of risking an accident. He adds that killing the heir would only invite Ji Hongwu's wrath and benefit their rivals, because his own research unit lacks the power to seize control of the Southern Sky Group. Jiang Yilang plans to use Gao Peng's status as the heir to force a capitulation, checking the time for Ji Hongwu's people to arrive. Claiming to be a respectable researcher, he uses his butterfly to paralyze and tie up his pleading subordinate. A shockwave rips through the area as Ji Hongwu arrives in person. The sheer power of his arrival triggers the alarms at Chang'an's military region, where a commander orders his men to stand down because a storm is coming. Confronted by Ji Hongwu's wolf, Zhang Yulong drops to his knees and pleads for his life by claiming he has Gao Peng's child. When Ji Hongwu decides to walk away, Jiang begs him to stay and gives up Secretary Lu. Jiang begs the chairman for forgiveness, but Ji Hongwu states that he will never be threatened. He orders his people to find and destroy Jiang's program, deciding he will publicly announce Gao Peng as his heir if necessary. Tang Tang kneels before him in the ruins, and Ji Hongwu thanks her for her hard work. He explains that he kept Gao Peng's identity hidden to protect him from the group's internal chaos and to temper his willpower. Leaving Tang to clean up the mess, Ji Hongwu decides not to visit Gao Peng yet. wanting his grandson to develop a rock-solid heart. Meanwhile, Gao Peng stands in the empty villa, wondering why he cannot reach the manager or the workers. Gao Peng examines a damaged wall and realizes the markings look like claw marks. A mysterious figure suddenly confronts him, noting his recent growth before identifying itself. Gao Peng sighs as the illusion drops, realizing it is just Sister Tang testing him, and asks why she looks so dismissive. Tang sternly warns him not to let his guard down so easily, just because he thinks he knows someone. Gao Peng smiles, explaining that if he has to be suspicious of her, he would have no one to trust since he became an orphan. Tang immediately corrects him, revealing that he is not an orphan and that his grandfather is still alive. Gao Peng is completely shocked by the news. She explains that during the cataclysm, his grandfather and several trusted aides were stranded on a foreign island. Because islands have no armies to protect them, surviving there was a hellish challenge compared to the inland cities. But his grandfather survived through sheer will by continuously training familiars to fight for him. Gao Peng is amazed by the story. Gao Peng confidently replies that he understands his grandfather's personality, realizing this is a test to make him grow on his own. He reassures Tong that he considers his grandfather family and will not complain about his absence. He then excitedly asks what grade his grandfather's familiar is and if it is incredibly strong. Tong teases him that he will find out the answer in the future. Far away, Jihanwu laughs to himself, glad that his grandson understands his intentions so well. The next day at school, Gao Peng finds a panicked crowd gathered around an ambulance. A classmate informs him that a student was nearly killed when a monster trainer cadet attacked him with a familiar. Another student explains that the cadet was taking revenge on the hospitalized student, who used to be his primary bully. The students argue over whether violent retaliation is justified in their dangerous new world. Gao Peng wonders if the school and the military will remove the training grounds because of this incident. Inside, the principal argues that familiars are more dangerous than knives and should not be allowed in school. The military representative asks the principal to calm down, explaining that they didn't wish for this to happen either. The military representative agrees to relay the principal's concerns to his superiors, though he makes no promises. He notes that nowhere is truly safe anymore, and they can only rely on the law to deter such events. At the Chang'an military region, the representative reports the situation to the chief instructor, who agrees that school should be a place for studying. Meanwhile, at the Chang'an military region, an official reports a surge of malicious familiar attacks, noting that foreign police forces are so overwhelmed they must rely on civilians for stability. He assures his worried colleague that the World Allied government will soon enact special measures to handle the crisis. The next morning, an instructor reprimands his students for bullying each other instead of hunting monsters. He announces that all familiars are now banned from the school building and must use a separate gate. Gao Peng pulls Silly off his head and casually mentions that jellyfish wolfberry soup tastes good. Silly squeaks in shock, quickly reaching into its dimensional space. It hands him a carton of fruit juice to avoid becoming soup. Another instructor calls for attention, warning the cadets that their training over the next 2 months will determine their college entrance exam results, as top corporations will recruit anyone who scores well. He outlines the 3-round exam, starting with a unified test where examinees lead their familiars against randomized monsters. He explains they can select monster tiers for bonus points, but cannot exceed their own familiars to prevent point farming. He adds that the second round will be a live broadcast wilderness survival mission, and passing it guarantees admission to a prestigious university. Another student mutters a plan, while Gao Peng calculates that he needs to promote Stripey to a perfect grade as fast as possible to qualify. A classmate overhears and stares at him in confusion. Later, Instructor Zhang presents a mutant dead leaf locust and asks who wants to fight it first. Gao Peng decides it is the perfect training opponent for Stripey, since locusts are natural prey for spiders. But he wonders why Stripey is trembling, guessing its previous aggression was just a stress response. When Gao Peng volunteers, the instructor advises him to focus on advancing just one familiar to commander tier instead of wasting effort. Gao Peng insists his training is planned out, knowing he cannot reveal that his system makes upgrading easy. He encourages Stripey, but the spider cowers before the locust. The other students mock the stalemate, and Gao Peng realizes his spider would rather hide than fight aggressively like Daza. He tells Stripey it has to experience combat if it wants to grow. The dead leaf locust suddenly lunges, grabbing Stripey and lifting it into the air. Stripey thrashes wildly, striking at the mantis-like arms holding it. Gao Peng curses, realizing the mutant insect has the aerial advantage. Stripey spits a stream of spider silk, prompting Gao Peng to cheer as the web blasts the locust. The silk ensnares the insect mid-air, completely disrupting its attack rhythm. But as the locust crashes down, Stripey recoils in fear, leaving itself open to a furious downward strike. The mutant strikes. A classmate compliments Gao Peng on Stripey defusing the attack. Gao Peng notes Stripey missed its chance to strike back because it was busy defending, so he orders it to attack the locust. Stripey refuses, claiming it is too scared and that climbing the cage is too hard, which leaves Gao Peng in shock before he scolds the spider for being his lamest familiar. He quickly blames his own greed and decides to just train Stripey's defense since the spider refuses to attack. He tells Stripey to just come back, but the spider panics as it remembers Grandma Chen's coffin. Terrified that its new master will abandon it too, Stripey screams that it does not want to be thrown away as the locust lunges. Stripey snaps and shreds the locust, spraying green liquid across the cage. The watching students praise the counterattack, but Gao Peng realizes Stripey has entered an aggressive, out-of-control state. The spider spits web and launches a violent barrage. Stripey screeches until Gao Peng reaches out and orders it to stop. He apologizes and praises the spider, but Stripey remains enraged because it thinks it is being thrown away. Gao Peng promises he will never abandon his partner, and Stripey's status returns to normal as it asks if he means it. He swears it is true. The instructor watches them, amazed by how Gao Peng demanded the cage be opened without hesitation to save his familiar. A week later, Gao Peng notes that Stripey has finally lost weight from its training. Because Stripey no longer fears combat, Gao Peng formulates a stamina depletion style with Colonel Chen, deciding to take things slowly as Stripey reaches level 13. Not wanting to waste the spider's shed exoskeleton, Gao Peng decides to fry it as medicine, reasoning that Daza can handle any poison. He tastes the fried shell, decides it needs cumin powder, and calls Stripey and Daza over to try it. Stripey eats the food and finds the taste oddly familiar. Realizing his soul strength is increased, Gao Peng asks Dumby to become his familiar. Dumby accepts the bond and Gao Peng celebrates his successful contract. He smiles warmly, asking the skeletal ape to guide him for the rest of his life. Later, while riding the bus to the second wilderness training, Gao Peng is glad he brought Dumby and Daza so they can explore safely. Nearby, a group of students swear to expel the person who locked them inside a house. Overhearing them, Gao Peng recognizes the group he trapped and notes the irony of fate. Upon arriving, Dumby's epic-grade aura terrifies the other monsters, so Gao Peng tells him to suppress it. The other students look on in jealous frustration at the powerful familiar. Riding Dumby through the valley, Gao Peng travels alone because it makes things easier. Dumby declares he will protect his master, a phrase Gao Peng realizes the skeleton learned from watching a children's television show. Startled by a creature fleeing toward a familiar pond, Gao Peng tells Dumby to change direction to avoid being spat on by green-skinned frogs. Suddenly, a giant jungle anaconda emerges and Gao Peng realizes they have wandered into its territory. The green-skinned frogs attack with water jets, but the level 20 anaconda completely ignores them, displaying strength beyond a commander tier. As the frogs scatter in panic, Gao Peng realizes the anaconda's periodic hunting keeps the pond's ecosystem in balance. Gao Peng watches as the full anaconda slithers away and decides it is best to avoid direct conflict. He turns to Dumby with new instructions. Gao Peng enjoys the roasted frog leg, realizing its delicious meat is why the giant jungle anaconda visits this area. Dazi twitches, and Gao Peng soon spots a level 14 black light horse in the forest. He briefly wants to capture the excellent grade mount, but decides against it because he already has enough familiars. Turning back, he finds his frog leg missing and accuses Dumby of stealing it, while Dazi points the blame. Dumby grabs Dazi and shakes the centipede, making Gao Peng note that only Dumby can keep Dazi in its place. Suddenly, Dumby grabs Gao Peng and pulls him away as the giant jungle anaconda launches a sneak attack from above. Realizing they would have died without Dumby's reflexes, Gao Peng hides behind a tree and orders his skeleton to kill the snake for attacking them unprovoked. Dumby leaps through the trees and lands a powerful strike on the beast. The snake hisses and tries to fight back, but Dumby ruthlessly pierces its defenses. Seeing the snake take moderate injuries, Gao Peng is once again amazed by Dumby's combat ability. Dumby follows up with a punch fueled by purple energy. The injured giant jungle anaconda enters a berserk state, so Gao Peng shouts a warning to Dumby to watch out for its trump card. The beast strikes, impaling Dumby's arm and forcing him to his knees. The snake lunges for the kill as Gao Peng asks if his familiar can stand, but Dumby simply reaches out to grip an energy core. The snake suddenly gasps for air. Gao Peng realizes Dumby is using his new blood thread heart ability to crush the enemy's heart from a distance. Agitated, the anaconda rushes in, but Dumby launches a blindingly fast strike that blows the beast back. Dumby steps from the brush, his own red core pulsing, and prepares to finish the fight. Meanwhile, back at the base, an instructor notes the skeleton must have commander tier strength to kill a gigantified anaconda, and asks for Gao Peng's file. The operator reports that Gao Peng's family background is encrypted above their clearance level, leaving the instructor wondering who the boy really is. Because the high encryption makes recruitment difficult, the instructor orders his men to simply keep Gao Peng safe from accidents. Back at the forest, Gao Peng has Dazi cut the dead snake open and finds a thick vine inside, explaining how the creature could float across the treetops. Dumby sits weakened by the tree, because activating the blood thread heart destroys it temporarily, though Gao Peng knows it will regenerate and grant new benefits. A sudden roar echoes through the trees. Dazi recognizes the sound, and Gao Peng realizes his classmate Mu Taiying and her familiar lotus seed are in trouble. Elsewhere, Mu Taiying clutches her injured ankle just as a tooth-filled worm bursts from the ground to attack her. A worm lunges at the girls. Mu Taiying commands Lotus Seed to block it, while another student picks way up to run. The structure collapses as another worm bursts from the ground. The girls realize they are doomed because Lotus Seed is busy with the first monster and their own familiars cannot fight. Dumby strikes the second worm. Gao Peng orders Dumby and Dazi to help Lotus Seed finish off the other one, so Dumby grabs the creature and throws it aside. Dazi readies its blades and launches an attack while Dumby charges in to strike. Mu Taiying tells Gao Peng she would be lying on the ground if he had not arrived in time. He tells her there is no need to thank him because friends should help each other. An announcement abruptly ends the simulation training. Gao Peng explains that a new monster in the Dali Desert forced the earthworms into the area, but Director Feng confirmed the government already has a solution. Later, a man confronts Gao Peng in an alley to get revenge for being locked in a safe house. Gao Peng tells him he is too old to go around looking for fights, and points out he brought 3 weak familiars to block the path. Dazi gets annoyed at the weak opponents, so Gao Peng has to calm his centipede down. The man orders his blood-raging Kong to break a few of Gao Peng's bones. Gao Peng questions the man's intelligence for buying a staff for a familiar, and tells Dumby to teach the monkey a lesson. Dumby instantly grabs the Kong and slaps it in the face. The gorilla cries and hides behind its master, who scolds it for acting like a bullied child. Realizing Gao Peng is too strong, the man tries to apologize so he can back off and find another chance later. He looks up to see Gao Peng has already walked away without taking him seriously. His subordinates invite him to a bar, but the man declines. He wipes the tears from his Kong's face and tells it they are going home to train, because jealousy will only widen the gap between them and their enemy. Elsewhere, a student vows to work hard and become stronger because that is the only way to go up against Gao Peng. A girl hands him a gift to help him train. Back at the studio, Gao Peng neutralizes reagents and instructs Stripey to jump into a liquid tank to make the spider stronger. Gao Peng waits for the process to finish, relieved that he only needs to boil the materials this time. He knows future upgrades will be difficult because they require familiars to control the temperature exactly. Outside, 2 masked burglars prepare to break in. One argues that robbing a studio is better than a bank because experimental materials fetch millions of dollars. They use a device to pry the glass open, warning each other to stand back so they avoid the explosion. Gao Peng hears the noise and checks the security camera. He sees the lens is blocked and realizes intruders are outside the door. He calls the police to report the break-in. The burglars hurry their search and enter the laboratory to inspect a running tank. One burglar decides to smash the tank because whatever is inside must be valuable. Before he can, Dazi bites his arm. Gao Peng watches from behind the glass, realizing he has to stall them so Stripey's evolution does not fail. He steps out and asks the startled intruders if they want some tea. The intruders exchange a look and one swings a hammer at Gao Peng to give him a taste of his weapon. An impact follows, and the thugs assume Gao Peng is dead. Gao Peng warns them about the consequences of messing with him. The system announces a successful dark evolution, and Stripey emerges as a shield demon-armored spider. Startled by the noise, one of the intruders turns around and is suddenly attacked by Gao Peng. The victim screams in agony, and later the police arrive at the destroyed door. Smelling blood, the officers rush in to save the caller, only to find a bloody corpse. As the officers declare it a homicide, a bloody Gao Peng asks if they are the police. The men draw their guns and order him down, but Gao Peng raises his hands and explains he is the victim who called them. At the police station, an angry interrogator demands to know why Gao Peng continued attacking after the intruders were dead, rejecting his claim of self-defense. Gao Peng points to his bandaged head as proof they attacked first, and the police chief soon arrives to confirm the investigation clears him. Tang Tang meets him, noting that his grandfather was extremely worried, but Gao Peng admits he inflicted the head wound on himself so he wouldn't be charged with murder. Tang Tang praises him, telling him that being kind to an enemy is being cruel to himself, and takes him home to rest. Later, As Gao Peng sleeps, an intruder suddenly appears in his room and stabs the bed with a knife. The masked intruder reveals himself as one of the dead men, screaming that he crawled out of hell for revenge because Gao Peng faked being unconscious before killing them. Gao Peng defiantly replies that they wanted to kill him and he must be ruthless to survive. But the dead man grabs him. The intruder tells him to explain it to the King of Hell, and Gao Peng wakes up in a cold sweat. Looking at Dumby, he remembers the saying that life springs from sorrow and calamity, while death comes from ease and pleasure, and resolves to conquer his fears. At the training ground, the instructor announces that today's challenge is an excellent grade, level 20 EV tier skull-winged blue bat, and anyone who beats it gets to keep it. A student volunteers as level 18 electric Lester Bear to fight first, but the level 20 skull-winged blue bat defeats the bear with one blow, leaving the student crying for the medic team. The instructor challenges the rest of the class, scolding them for chickening out when they are usually so lively. Gao Peng raises his hand to go next, and his classmates cheer for him. Dumby steps up to fight the flying bat. Observers worry because Dumby cannot fly, but Gao Peng knows Dumby's stats are higher, so they just need to wear the bat out. Dumby strikes the bat down, leaving it defeated and bleeding on the ground. Gao Peng confirms with the instructor that the bat is his to do with as he pleases, and immediately offers to sell it for 500 alliance credits, catching Mu Tiang's interest. He warns her that the bat cannot fly high or fast, but she transfers the credits anyway, so he offers her a future discount on leveling it up. That evening, Gao Peng browses online and decides to buy a Steel Black Dragon Series 3 transport truck. He tells Dumby the truck is perfect because it can store all his familiars and suits his domineering style. Gao Peng is surprised when Teng Teng takes her cat for a walk, claiming it was just a dirty stray she found. But he sees its true stats, a level 36 perfect grade Commander tier Night Shadow cat. Teng Teng asks why he hasn't moved into his new suburban villa yet, explaining that his growing number of familiars takes up too much space, though she assures him he can return anytime. Alone in his room, Gao Peng looks at a photo of his late parents and tells them he has grown up. He decides that after his college entrance exams, he will go help his grandfather, who seems to be in trouble. The day of the Monster Trainer college entrance examination finally arrives. At the checkpoint, candidates must scan their tickets and pass through separate doors to verify their blood contracts with their familiars. An alarm blares when a student's giant red monster goes berserk, forcing officials to call in the Silver Moon Wolves to suppress it, while an examiner demands an explanation. The crying student confesses he secretly brought his father's familiar to cheat. The examiner tells him to stand up and keep his dignity before disqualifying him, and guards drag the boy away as Gao Peng receives his nameplate. Assigned to Area A, Gao Peng realizes the zones are divided by tier. Surrounded by level 25 beasts and rare familiars, he deduces this area is for the few trainers with commander tier familiars, making him excited to test his elite tier Dumby against them. In a monitoring room, officials observe the top 8 youngsters of Chang'an City. An official reveals that monsters actually appeared a decade ago, but the truth was hidden to prevent panic, sternly declaring that these students are humanity's future, and no accidents can happen. With strict 1-to-1 camera monitoring in place to ensure safety, the announcer calls candidate number 5 to prepare, and Gao Peng steps into the arena. Gao Peng orders Dumby to attack the lakeside giant scorpion's sides, because a status window reveals it has no carapace beneath its body. As Dumby grapples with the level 22 commander, Gao Peng is surprised by the giant scorpion's quick reflexes. The beast strikes back, and Gao Peng realizes it is not easy to overcome the difference in their levels. Suddenly, Dumby reaches level 21 and is promoted to the commander tier, but the match remains at a standstill because the scorpion uses its newly awakened water powers to continuously erode Dumby. Spotting a new ability, Gao Peng instructs Dumby to use its remaining blood threads to strengthen its legs, and the skeleton agrees. Dumby activates Bone Harden, which Gao Peng notes is perfectly suited for his familiar's crude close-range fighting style. Dumby shatters the scorpion's head, leaving Gao Peng shocked that the beast can still counterattack after suffering such heavy injuries. Dumby grabs the scorpion and strikes a vital point, allowing Gao Peng to declare checkmate. When Gao Peng praises him, Dumby thanks his master for saving him from a cage. But Gao Peng says the victory comes from Dumby's own hard work. Dazi immediately gets jealous of the 5-second hug and leaps at Gao Peng to demand 1-2. Nearby, Gao Peng observes another candidate, whose familiar finished even faster without taking any visible injuries. In the monitoring room, the examiners recognize the girl as Jun Moyi, an extremely talented trainee of the Black Flag. They also praise Gao Peng as Chang'an City's youngest monster breeder, while Ji Hanwu smirks proudly at his grandson's performance. An examiner watches the boy, remarking that the old man has a good grandson. As another candidate finishes up, Gao Peng praises Dumby for its victory. The examiner is amazed because Gao Peng just defeated a commander tier monster using his newly promoted familiar. Gao Peng's third exam begins against a wood attribute Deadleaf Mantis, and he realizes Stripey's earth attribute gives him a 10% point advantage. He watches the mantis imitate human behavior, noting its intelligence matches an 8-year-old child. But he hopes this match builds Stripey's confidence since the spider's spirituality is 2 grades higher. The battle starts, and the nervous mantis lunges forward with its bladed arm. Stripey looks confused by the movements, so Gao Peng explains that the mantis is not dancing, but trying to scare him, and orders the spider to strike back. Realizing this is not a game, Stripey lashes out, leaving the mantis thoroughly confused by the sudden speed. The mantis tries to strike again, but Stripey easily traps it in a gray substance and asks Gao Peng why the bug is so weak. The mantis breaks free and charges, only for Stripey to counter with an energy blade. The mantis screams in agony as Stripey relentlessly beats it down. A shocked instructor tells Gao Peng his exam is finished and orders him to leave the site. Out in the waiting area, the cute examinees are stunned to see Gao Peng finish so early, grumbling that he is just showing off his strength. Later, Gao Peng arrives at his newly purchased villa, only to find the walls smashed and the yard filled with debris. Mourning his lost alliance credits, he spots a freshly ripped cushion, realizes the culprit is still inside, and orders Daisy and Stripey to attack. The intruder is a jellyfish familiar named Silly, and Gao Peng lifts it to complain that this will not make him stronger, while Dumby asks if he can eat it. A dead bird lies on the ground, leaving its young offspring behind. At Gao Peng's home, Sister Tang stops by his window to hand him the orphaned crane as a housewarming gift from his grandfather, Ji Hunwu. Gao Peng is shocked to see she has already turned the wasteland next door into a new villa just to stay close and protect him. He has Dumby lift the strange, one-legged red-crowned crane, warning the skeleton not to strangle it. When the bird glares at him, Gao Peng decides to intimidate it, telling Dazi they might have roast crane for dinner. The bird cries out in distress, but as Gao Peng checks its stats, he is stunned to see it is an epic grade level 6 flaming red crane. He realizes that it will naturally reach Lord tier when it grows up, making it a powerful ally. Seeing the creatures are hungry, he offers them mealworms and decides to name the crane Flamey. Gao Peng initiates a contract, drawing him into Flamey's consciousness. There, he realizes the bright spots show a beast killing the crane's mother. He tells Flamey he knows what it is like to lose a mother, and when the little bird asks for revenge, he promises to help. The contract completes, binding them together as Gao Peng assures Flamey that its problems are now his own. Wondering why he is still trapped inside, Gao Peng summons his familiars from cards. He is flooded with ancient knowledge, unlocking a new life-saving ability called Elemental Barrier that uses his familiar's energy. He realizes this barrier must have awakened when Dumby reached Commander Tier, discovering from the ancient text that monster trainers are meant to hide behind their familiars. This makes him realize that the transferable ability Sister Tang taught him is incredibly rare, and that she and his grandfather are far more powerful than he thought. Sometime later, Flamey pecks at a tree. Watching the crane, Gao Peng knows it is driven by a deep-rooted hatred to avenge its mother. He relaxes with a book by Feng Shu, wondering where Silly went before spotting the jellyfish sleeping peacefully in the grass. Gao Peng enjoys his easy life, treating monster breeding as a hobby now that his grandfather has given him a limitless credit card. He suddenly remembers that the exam results are released today, but his device warns him that his account has already been logged into from the Southern Sky Group Temple Tower. Knowing his grandfather is checking up on him causing Ji Hunwu to sneeze in his office, Gao Peng decides to check the results himself. Gao Peng checks his exam results and smirks because he ranked first in Chang'an City with a score of 710. He receives a call informing him he is qualified for the 15-day second round. Because Flammy is still too young for the dangerous exam, the crane cannot participate, so he needs to find it a temporary home. He spots Sister Tang outside and realizes Ji Hunwu secretly planned this meeting to help him. Seeing her wait eagerly for him to ask, he smiles at how much his family worries about him. He asks Tong to look after Flamey, and she cheerfully promises to feed the crane until it gets fat. Gao Peng doubts that is an empty promise. Elsewhere, a rival fumes over taking second place, until his maid explains Gao Peng had a 10-point elemental advantage. He slams his fist down and vows not to let the defeat go. Later, Gao Peng arrives at the gathering place to find only 8 candidates present. An official announces the second round will take place in Sun Mountain National Forest Park, which holds at least 500 commander-tier monsters. He tells them they will receive emergency flare guns. Because the Farsi is so dangerous, the exam is optional, so 2 students immediately withdraw. After a teacher warns a female student about her parents, a handler cheerfully signs up. The official tells the remaining 6 they will represent Chang'an City against candidates from other military cities. A red-haired student named Wang Zhenshan introduces himself and excitedly shakes Gao Peng's hand. Wang Zhenshan assumes they are the only 2 students without wealthy backgrounds, though Gao Peng admits he is not exactly a muggle. When Wang Zhenshan asks about scouting offers, Gao Peng guesses his family turned the companies away to protect him. Wang Zhenshan introduces his level 21 golden devil ant, explaining it mutated after eating something by mistake. Gao Peng checks its stats and wonders how his system names things with such precognition. The official announces their planes have arrived, and they prepare to depart. Observers note the military is using planes to protect the geniuses. At the base camp, Gao Peng observes nearly 200 competitors and spots a shy level 23 vine-covered rock monster being photographed. Inside, a scarred examiner hands out consent letters, warning the candidates they must acknowledge the possibility of dying. He explains the exam has a 10% mortality rate even for those with commander-tier familiars, so they need to think carefully. Gao Peng receives his document and reads that a death only pays 1,000 alliance credits, which confirms the exam is extremely dangerous. The examiner explains that candidates will earn points by destroying pillars, and the top 12 will advance to a 3rd round. He adds that the final round will be broadcast globally, and the winners will receive universally recognized titles. Wang Zhenshan thinks the title sounds cool, but Gao Peng dismisses it as childish. Gao Peng decides he needs a title with the word king, because there are so many that suit him. A helicopter announces the start of the 2nd round, instructing candidates to follow the searchlights to the destination within 20 minutes. Gao Peng tells Dumby to go. They rush through the forest, and Gao Peng commands Stripey to clear the path. He uses a technique to avoid being cut by the branches as Dumby sprints. They pass a candidate who is begging his level 25 stellar white pig to slow down because there is no prize for 1st place. Gao Peng notes that it is sad to be despised by a familiar, as the pig rider wishes him the best. He wonders why the nut job would wish him that. Elsewhere, commentators introduce a Yanjing district candidate with a fire-type bird, and note that Gao Peng will appear soon. Tang Tang feeds Flamey fish so it can become stronger and follow its master. The irritable pig charges through the forest, leaving another candidate stunned. An examiner announces that time is up, disqualifying anyone who has not reached the destination. He tells the remaining 150 candidates they can take 1 survival backpack each to guarantee an extra hour of survival. He advises them that the forest will be completely different from what they expect, so their only goal is to survive to get a high score. Meanwhile, back at the broadcast studio, hosts welcome the audience to a special program tracking the candidates, featuring guest expert Duan Wu. They note that most candidates have rushed to the center to find point pillars, and that a girl named Jun Moyi is currently in 1st place. Duan Wu analyzes her Black Anaconda's combat strength, while his co-host complains that the audience wants to hear about the trainer, not the snake. She jokes that Duan Wu's focus on familiars explains why he is hopelessly single. The host then switched the screen to show the candidate in last place. They criticize the teenager's laziness as Gao Peng stretches out on a rock and enjoys the comfort. Deciding the outer areas are safe enough, Gao Peng finally heads into the depths of Sun Mountain Forest. He tells Silly to throw away the cheap leaves to make room for a flower worth more than 1 alliance credit. Dumby spots something, and Gao Peng realizes they have found a fabled point pillar made of white earth sandstone, which attracts monsters. Gao Peng wants the points for destroying the pillar, but he spots a commander-tier ghostwood vine pretending to be a normal plant and mocks acting skills. He orders Dazi to fire. The vine screams in agony as it burns, completely vulnerable to the flames. Gao Peng sends Dumby forward, and the vine immediately tries to entangle the skeleton. The ghostwood vine relies on its knife-like leaves to crush and bleed its prey, but Gao Peng knows trying to cut Dumby's bones is like polishing them with sandpaper. He tells Deza to finish it quickly, and the centipede moves in as the vine swings wildly. An explosion engulfs the area. Gao Peng is surprised by the easy victory, realizing the commander-tier monster must have been recently promoted. He orders Dumby to crush the pillar, and the skeleton smashes it to pieces. A drone registers the destruction, awarding Gao Peng 150 points to bring his total to 199. He tells his familiars to search the wreckage for the valuable monster core. The system announces the elimination of candidate Zhou Hai, making Gao Peng wonder if the local monsters are truly that vicious, or if candidates are killing each other. Elsewhere, recovery staff find Zhou He already dead, noting the attack punctured straight through his protective glasses, and prepare to return his body and familiar to his family. Back in the forest, Gao Peng investigates a smoky area and finds another candidate with a level 21 giant monarch scorpion, reminding himself to stay on guard since fighting is not prohibited. The other candidate immediately concedes the point pillar to Gao Peng, promising they will meet again. Watching the broadcast, the commentators note the lack of conflict, pointing out that the real wilderness is far more bloodthirsty than a fair match. Sometime later, deeper in the forest, Gao Peng smells rotting flesh and warns his familiars to stay alert in the unnatural quiet. A rustling in the bushes turns out to be a harmless unicorn rabbit, and Gao Peng calls it a false alarm. But a blade suddenly impales the rabbit from the shadows, prompting Gao Peng to order an immediate retreat. He is frustrated that he cannot identify the hidden monster's attributes without a clear view and lacks the long-range attacks to probe it. As they run, a blade swings from the dark. Dumby steps in to block the lethal strike. Daza takes a heavy blow, leaving Gao Peng shocked that the centipede is bleeding despite using its elemental barrier. The insect charges, so Gao Peng orders Stripey to use his silk to trap its weapon. At Special Ops headquarters, the officers realize the corpse mutation dream insect is targeting trainers first because their defense is weaker than their familiars. They track White Rose approaching the location, anxious to prevent more casualties from this training exercise. A subordinate calls Gao Peng cowardly for retreating, but the captain defends the retreat as a necessary strategy to avoid arrogant defeats. Gao Peng sees the level 35 Dreamstick insect's stats, realizing its only fatal weak point is a rice-sized white spot on its abdomen. He considers fleeing because getting close enough to find it could cost him his life. The insect relentlessly slashes at them, and Stripey begs his master to run. But Gao Peng refuses to retreat, declaring they will finish it today by hitting that white spot. Dumby intercepts the insect's spear-like limbs, using his lack of flesh and blood to withstand the impaling strikes, though the barrage appears to pin him in place. Dumby catches a blade, and Gao Peng realizes his familiar isn't stuck at all, but is holding his ground to shield the rest of them. Now at a safe distance, Gao Peng orders Dumby to dodge and counter, refusing to let the monster bully his friends. Meanwhile, in the sky above Sun Mountain Forest, White Rose pushes her mount faster, urging the kid not to die before she arrives. Gao Peng orders Dezi to crawl up the insect's abdomen, but the centipede is impaled, sending Dumby into a rage. Dumby tears into the insect's eye, but the monster's combat power remains higher. Seeing his familiars suffer injuries, Gao Peng knows they need to quickly break this stalemate. He orders Daza to aim for the white spot, and a centipede unleashes electricity directly at the target. Gao Peng commands Dazi to hit the monster again while Dumby distracts it. High above, White Rose asks for permission to engage before a bird construct descends. Gao Peng is shocked to see a level 38 light albatross belonging to the military loom behind the Dreamstick insect. He watches in surprise as the bird flies away with the insect, relieved that they did not have to keep fighting where they would have been annihilated. Watching from afar, military observers note the rarity of Gao Peng owning 2 commander-tier familiars, but the captain explains they intervened because a candidate has already died and the higher-ups cannot afford to lose more trainers. Back in the forest, Gao Peng notes how quickly his familiars heal and inspects the defeated insect's tender flesh. Stripey shrieks as Dai tries to eat its severed leg, because the centipede claims the flesh will help it grow quickly. Gao Peng watches the squabble and tells Dai to just eat it. When the system announces another candidate's elimination, Gao Peng decides they must feed Stripey and let it regenerate before deciding their next move. That night, he figures surviving the longest is the key to a high score. So he suggests hunting along the forest edge while his companions recover. Stripey consumes a roaring wind mountain beast to reach level 20, and as its shell hardens for shedding, Dumby watches over the sleeping camp. The next day, Stripey breaks out of its shell, larger and fully healed. Gao Peng is thrilled to see Stripey's leg is regrown, knowing it is now only one step away from giving him 3 commander-tier familiars. The group excitedly sets off to find more point pillars. By a stream, Gao Peng spots a level 8 blue-skinned frog and wonders if it is related to the green-skinned frog. He dodges a projectile spat by the frog, annoyed that the data did not mention this disgusting family habit. As a drone hovers above them, a talk show host checks the rankings and is shocked to see the salted fish trainer has reached rank 15. A guest explains that Gao Peng only needs to reach the top 121 to pass, and the host hopes he makes it. As other candidates ride their giant familiars, an announcement declares the exam has ended and instructs everyone to head to a safe zone. Gao Peng is glad they can finally rest and knows he did his best, leaving the rest to destiny. In Jiangnan, a father scolds his son for failing to qualify for the youth assembly, and the son begs him to use his contacts to find a way in. His father refuses because too many enemies are waiting for him to make a mistake, and orders the boy to keep a low profile. Elsewhere, Gao Peng learns the government delayed the assembly by 3 months to let candidates grow. A man from Chang'an invites Gao Peng and Jun Moyi to a nearby seafood restaurant for a get-together. A blonde man approaches Gao Peng, who ignores him. The man offers 1 million alliance credits just to talk, so Gao Peng suggests they go to a cafe. The man explains his ghost familiar is so cowardly it needs head pats to sleep, which Gao Peng calls a good kind of caution. At the table, the man offers Gao Peng a huge sum to withdraw from the competition. He warns that a Mei district trainer already contracted a Lord-tier familiar, making first place impossible to win. Gao Peng notes the employer must really love their child to pay so much, but he refuses the money to pursue a higher stage instead. The man urges him to reconsider the enormous amount, but Gao Peng firmly declines. Gao Peng pays for the coffee and walks away. The man reports the rejection over the phone, noting that his cruel client will likely retaliate to teach the boy a lesson. Suddenly, the man realizes the room is empty. Handlers and their beasts ambush him from all sides, forcing him to consider using his trump card. Two men tell Mr. John to stop struggling because they already captured his familiar, leaving him completely cut off. He tosses a bank card past his head. Ji Hanwoo offers 5 million credits for Zhang's time and demands to know what he said to Gao Peng. Hearing that the boy declined, Zhang wonders who Gao Peng really is to command someone of Ji Hanwoo's status. Ji Hanwoo asks for Zhang's next step, warning him not to lie because his sister would hate a liar. Xiao Xuan holds her brother's hand, explaining that the grandpa helped her find him because he was too busy to come home. Ji Hanwoo sends the little girl inside for ice cream, leaving her brother to plead his innocence regarding Gao Peng. Ji Hanwoo tells the man that his innocence is the only reason he is still alive, and offers him a job because killing people wastes their value. The man reveals that Mayor Han Yuhan, Wanming of Jinling, ordered the investigation, but Ji Hanwoo decides to leave the mayor for Gao Peng to defeat himself, adding that the youth competition is a waste of his grandson's time. Meanwhile, Gao Peng looks out over the city, deciding to put off worrying about the people targeting him until the next day. A sudden knock startles him, and as he opens his door, a familiar voice leaves him in shock. Ji Hanwoo warmly greets him, and Gao Peng embraces his grandfather after years of separation. Ji Hanwoo praises his grandchild's courage in the competition, and when Gao Peng admits he felt too weak, his grandfather promises that no one will ever bully him again. Gao Peng offers his expertise in training familiars, but Ji Hanwoo warns him that Mayor Han Yuanming plans to frame him with false accusations to force him out of the tournament. He encourages Gao Peng to use the impending smear campaign as motivation to push himself and exact his own revenge. Ji Hanwoo then asks him to voluntarily withdraw from the youth assembly, and Gao Peng cheerfully agrees to contact the organizer. Surprised by the lack of resistance, Ji Hanwoo asks why he is giving up such a huge opportunity, and Gao Peng simply states that he trusts his grandfather's reasons. Yu Hanwoo explains that the cataclysm erased all generational advantages, so Gao Peng must drop the word youth and strive to be the strongest monster trainer overall. He warns that as trainers gain the power to destroy mountains, their greed will inevitably shatter the current peace, meaning Gao Peng must focus on real ambition instead of wasting time in tournaments. When Gao Peng asks if his grandfather intends to maintain the coming order or destroy it, Ji Hanwoo smiles and says his only goal is to protect his grandson. To make up for the withdrawal, Ji Hanwoo promises to help Gao Peng enter the competition as a judge, provided he works hard enough over the next 3 months to earn the spot. Meanwhile, back at the Chang'an Base City Airport, Gao Peng decides to apply to Yuzhou University so he can stay close to his grandfather. His phone rings with a call from Feng Shu, who asks for his help with a lucrative job, which Gao Peng agrees to since he already has business at the Monster Breeder Association. Feng Shu reveals he has left the association because it was absorbed by the Monster Trainer League, while two mysterious figures observe a building elsewhere. Now working for the military, Feng Shu offers to pay Gao Peng in rare materials, prompting Gao Peng to ask him to get straight to the point. Feng Shu explains that the military is preparing to guard a Commander-tier Chateau Man man-eating earthworm as it evolves to Lord-tier, making Gao Peng smirk. He knows the Dali Desert already has a Lord-tier ruler, so he deduces the military is planning to reap the spoils of the inevitable territorial war. After clarifying to Silly that he is not talking to it, Gao Peng asks why the military needs him when they have stronger trainers. Feng Shu laughs off the implication that he is struggling in the military, and after confirming the evolution will happen within 2 days, Gao Peng agrees to join the operation. He knows a battle between Lord-tier monsters is beyond his capabilities, but he decides to observe it to expand his horizons. Elsewhere, a man and a woman are startled when they encounter a red crane, mistaking the bird for a fat penguin. Later, on the outskirts of Chang'an, Tang warns Gao Peng that heading further into the Dark Ember Forest will provoke its bad-tempered lord. Checking her familiar stats, Gao Peng realizes his grandfather sent Tang to protect him because of its shadow assassin abilities. Feng Shu introduces his military helpers, Li Qing with a level 24 Thorny Ironhide Boar, and Qin Yi with a level 27 Flaming Bird, leaving Gao Peng amused by their punny names. Feng Shu halts the group, warning that the evolving monster will be extremely cautious, while the others note that the swarm of earthworms will naturally protect their leader. He explains that the Lord of the Dark Ember is named after its territory, much like the desert ruler might become the Lord of the Dali if it stays long enough. He warns everyone to watch out for sneak attacks, just as Gao Peng spots something approaching. A giant rooster charges forward as the men joke about chickens eating earthworms. Relying on its natural instincts, the giant rooster bypasses the earthworm's defenses and strikes downward. However, the rooster looks confused when it fails to find its prey, prompting the group to joke about the missing worms. Feng Shu lectures Gao Peng that the commander-tier earthworm is hiding underground to evolve safely. A fact Gao Peng pretends not to know to avoid seeming too experienced. Suddenly, the ground shakes beneath the rooster, and it clucks loudly as it lunges at a new threat. Feng Shu points out that the earthworms have worked together to trap the chicken, leaving it unable to escape. The bird crashes to the ground and gets crushed by tentacles. A man complains about his companion's combat skills, but his friend tells him to relax. Tang Tang shushes the group as someone warns that a big one is coming. Gao Peng checks the system for the approaching monster's stats and finds them familiar. As the spider crashes down, Gao Peng realizes it is the deformed, half-promoted Lord Tier that Lu Senlin previously failed to defeat. A man notes the military thought it was dead, and another expresses concern about facing a Lord Tier. Tang Tang offers to take action against the spider, and the Eye Patch Man agrees they only need to stall it because defeating it is too difficult. A man realizes Tang possesses a rare camouflaging familiar, meaning she receives priority military training and is no ordinary person. Gao Peng offers Dumby's help, and Tang Tang tells Gao Peng to stand behind her. When the Eye Patch Man tries to join in, Tang Tang warns him that his group will only mess things up. The familiars clash with the spider in a flurry of rapid strikes. The man with glasses warns they cannot go on like this because neither side can land an effective attack. Gao Peng orders Dumby to use the blood thread heart and the skeleton activates its core. They realize the technique is already losing effectiveness against a higher tier monster, so they resolve to just stall. A man wonders if the shaken ground is an earthquake before a monster bites down. The Eye Patch Man celebrates that the promotion is a success, realizing they are now facing a genuine Lord Tier monster. He yells in frustration that they should have targeted the Desert Ruler instead, because this pseudo-Lord Spider has zero potential. Gao Peng sees the spider digging and realizes it is trying to escape through a tunnel. The eye patch-wearing man notes their mission is a success since the female spider collapsed the tunnel, but one of his men points out the spider is acting strangely. The monster begins spinning in circles, and Tang realizes it must be starving after expending so much energy in the fight. The spider spits a stream of liquid onto the swarm of earthworms, grabbing them with its claws. Gao Peng cringes at the messy meal, and when the men stare at him, he points out they still won't be able to catch the spider. Tang Tang tells him to relax, just as the spider unleashes a dark aura and lunges with a swift strike. Spectral creatures and green energy blasts fill the battlefield as the monsters clash. A mysterious head manifests and the monster roars but only takes a light injury. Seeing the creature take only minor damage, Gao Peng urges Tang to play the long game, but she confidently assures him the spider cannot run away. A bird emerges from the dust as someone points out its Lord Tier halo. The eye patch-wearing man warns his group to stay back, but is confused when the masked bird bows its head instead of attacking. Tang Tang explains it is mourning the dead monsters because it watched too many movies. A man realizes the Lord Tier belongs to Tang Tang, who jokes that women need self-defense methods. Gao Peng mutters that at this point he wouldn't be surprised if his grandfather's familiar is a dragon. The vulture stares at the spider, and Tang explains it is adjusting its mentality because it thinks it is a scavenger that can only eat carrion. The vulture looks disappointed by the order, but launches itself forward alongside a bright energy beam. The bird strikes with an energy burst and makes the armored monster screech. The spiky creature lunges, but the vulture swoops in to intercept it. The vulture licks its beak in anticipation, leaving the eye patch-wearing man stunned by how easily the pseudo-lord was conquered. Tang Tang orders the vulture to rip out the spider's leg tendons, and the bird cries out. The bird pins its prey to the ground so it cannot escape, prompting the men to praise the familiar's overwhelming strength. A man with glasses tells Director Feng they will take the female spider with them, while his companion wonders if their mission is finally accomplished. He decides it is useless to him because its evolution path is lacking and requires unknown ingredients like flowing earth marrow serum. He asks Tang Tang if she wants the spider, but she refuses, calling it ugly and suggesting he give it to his grandfather as a test subject. When Stripey looms over them, she quickly clarifies she was not talking about him and assures the spider he is the best. Gao Peng opens a door and is immediately confronted by Daza, who demands pork ribs. Gao Peng snaps that they are out of ribs and he cannot conjure them out of thin air, prompting the centipede to hatch a sudden idea. Seeing Dumby's silhouette on a screen, Gao Peng finds the situation intriguing. Wearing an apron, Gao Peng calls Dumby over to a boiling pot. The skeleton is overjoyed that his master remembered him even though he cannot eat. Seeing that the boiling water does not bother Dumby, Gao Peng realizes he no longer needs to buy ingredients for pork rib soup, and cheerfully offers the resulting broth to his other familiars. Looking out his window, Gao Peng anticipates a new journey. The next morning at Yuzhou Airport, a young man arrives from Chang'an. Elsewhere, Jihan Wu arrives at an island by boat, irritated that a trivial monster has delayed the reunion with his grandson. The sea monster attacks the vessel. Jihan Wu orders White to finish it quickly so he can get back. Fog rises and obscures a dragon-like creature as it strikes. It leaves the reptilian monster dead in the water. The logistics team prepares alloy cables to secure the valuable corpse, deploying the Blue Monkey team. The monkeys drag the carcass out of the sea. Watching a monitor, a man knows that the fog always blocks their view of the battle. He mutters that old man G is sneaky. Back at the Southern Sky Group, the young man is shocked to find a level 34 white demon plant on guard duty, considering it a waste of a Lord tier familiar. The woman invites him inside to wait and tells him to treat the place as his home, smirking at his reaction. The haughty couple insults Gao Peng as a country boy and walks away, boasting that they have an important meeting. Gao Peng teases Sun Xuanquan about not being recognized, until Secretary Han arrives and offers to escort Gao Peng to Chairman Ji. The couple freezes in shock as they realize Gao Peng is connected to the head of the Southern Sky Group, and Gao Peng openly mocks them. When the woman calls him rude, Gao Peng happily admits that his greatest strength is taking revenge on the spot, which amuses Han. Upstairs, Gao Peng greets Jihan Wu, who tells him that he will temporarily work for the company before his school term starts. Gao Peng thinks it is too soon, but Jihan Wu insists he must learn to manage the group quickly in case an accident befalls him. He tells Gao Peng to start at the bottom in the Human Resources Department and offers to hide his identity. Gao Peng refuses to play the weakling just to trick opponents, leaving him wondering if his grandfather reads too many novels. Jihan Wu sends them off, and Han leads Gao Peng to Human Resources, where they run into Tao Shang, the head of marketing. Chao Shang bows deeply to apologize for his earlier behavior, a public display that Gao Peng realizes is designed to put him in an awkward position. After Cao leaves, Gao Peng notes that the man was completely calm, meaning his emotional control is terrifyingly good. To spare him from these office politics, Han suggests Gao Peng handle recruitment in the Baiye district, and they drive out to the location. Han explains that the district is economically stunted because the residents who survived the cataclysm failed to adapt, while the capable ones already left. Outside the local branch, Han points out the recruitment hall, noting that the people there have lost all hope and refuse to sign blood contracts. Han introduces Section Chief Wang and Branch Manager Shui, who greet Gao Peng as young master, though he quickly tells them to use his official title instead. A colleague says goodbye and leaves, so Gao Peng asks Section Chief Wang to give him a tour of the facility. Wang shows him the familiar training center, but Gao Peng immediately threatens to deduct his pay if he does not call him Head Gao, leaving Wang to curse the wily teenager. Gao Peng asks if every branch has this punching equipment, and Wang admits they do, but claims no one uses it. Wang explains that other departments get luxurious venues and regular field training against forest monsters, so Gao Peng dismisses him to handle the Baiye district recruitment. Wang reassures Head Gao that his duties will be strictly limited to personnel transfers, then bows and leaves. Left alone, Gao Peng notices tears on the supposedly unused equipment and calls Flamey over, noting the level 20 bird will become a powerful flying mount once it hits the commander tier. To test its remaining agility, he orders Flamey to fly through a series of rings and is impressed by its top-notch acceleration. The bird crashes hard into the ground, leaving Gao Peng laughing at its dizzy state. He pats Flamey's head and encourages it to try again, and this time the bird successfully kicks the hoop to complete the maneuver. Flamey cries out, burps a small flame, and suddenly levels up to 21, leaving Gao Peng shocked by the effortless promotion. The flaming red crane unleashes a flaming claw as a man marvels at the promotion spectacle. Gao Peng checks its stats, realizing its new perfect grade ability ignites elements in the air for a powerful explosion. Though he worries about it using up too many feathers, he jokes that Flamey's current form might be permanent, sending the bird into shock before turning to Dumby as the skeleton drops a heavy dumbbell that cracks the floor. That night, a young boy and a small creature sneak through a hole in the brick wall to practice on the equipment. Gao Peng steps out of the dark and asks how long they've been coming here. And the hooded boy stammers that it has been half a year. The boy apologizes for using the equipment, but Gao Peng simply tells him not to use the hole in the future. As the boy turns to leave, Gao Ping reflects that some people still yearn for the light despite being born in hell and commands him to stop. Gao Peng tells the boy to come through the front door tomorrow and use his name to get an identity card. The next day, a worker informs Gao Peng that the boy has arrived, and Gao Peng asks for his name. The boy introduces himself as Li Junsong, so Gao Peng tells him to wash his level 4 blood scavenger rat and start training. Another man explains that the Baiye sewers are full of monsters, which hid underground to survive after trainers hunted them. Gao Peng learns that Yuzhou City is safe because Yuhan Wu keeps a familiar in the sewers to eat the pests. Li Junzong explains he only went into the sewers because he was starving, and Gao Peng realizes the agile rat has been finding food to keep the boy alive. Because the factory recruitment is struggling, Gao Peng offers Li Junzong a job with food, shelter, and free training. Back in his dormitory room, Gao Peng is shocked to find Stripey has jumped to level 25. He wonders if Ji Hanwu fed the spider top-tier ingredients, and considers leaving his familiars with his grandfather more often to regulate their growth. Silly has also reached level 20, so Gao Peng decides to test its new wood-type healing attribute on a lab rat. Half an hour later, Gao Peng scolds the jellyfish for wasting time to only heal a third of a tiny scratch on a mouse. See, Gray used to mirrors in the future, and while Gao Peng sits on the floor in defeat, he realizes Silly's level is just too low, so he plans to use the materials his grandfather collected to strengthen it. Later, Gao Peng finds Dumby staring at the full moon, and the skeleton admits he misses his daughter and wants to go back. Gao Peng immediately promises they will visit Dumby's hometown tomorrow. Sailing down the Red Sand River, Gao Peng asks if there are monsters below, and the boatman explains a King Red Carb's scale protects their ship. The boatman reveals they offer monsters as tribute to earn the scales, making Gao Peng realize the government hides this to cover up its inability to protect citizens without lower-tier familiars. They arrive at the forest, and Dumby asks Gao Peng if he recognizes the place. Nearby, a group of Red River apes whimper around one of their own trapped in a spiderweb. Dumby examines the ground, noting the tracks are months old, and Gao Peng suggests the apes moved elsewhere. Dumby suddenly senses something and rushes ahead, so Gao Peng orders Strapey to follow him. Gao Peng and Dumby watch the Red River apes play near a waterfall, and Gao Peng encourages Dumby to go see his family because he used to be their king. Dumby hesitates, and Gao Peng wonders if he refuses to go because he thinks he isn't a living being anymore. Gao Peng suggests they hide behind the trees so they do not disturb the apes, where Dumby cries and says he regrets failing to protect his daughter when she was caught at 3 months old. Gao Peng asks if Dumby wants to bring his daughter back to give her a better life, but Dumby shakes his head, explaining she is free here and he is happy staying with his master. A sudden noise startles the apes, and Gao Peng realizes the hunters have arrived. Dumby roars as blood splatters across the rocks. 10 minutes earlier, a group of hunters track the apes because the Zhou family is offering triple the price for their hearts. The men discuss the price increase, and the leader aims his rifle, confident there are no dangerous monsters around to stop them. He misses his shot and complains they need better weapons to hunt. His subordinates spot a threat, so the boss commands his creature to attack and orders his men to grab their things and hide in the trees. The iron-backed wolf is killed instantly, leaving the boss shocked to face a commander-tier ghoul-type monster. The apes tremble in fear as Dumby approaches his daughter. She looks up at him. She hugs his arm, and he holds her. The hunters realize they are trapped in the tree, but they spot Gao Peng and Strapey and beg the trainer to save them so they can escape the wild ghoul. Gao Peng mockingly replies he needs to give saving scumbags like them some thought. Dumby promises to protect his daughter, so Gao Peng orders Flamey and Dazi to guard her while he watches over them. The hunters finally realize Gao Peng is working with the ghoul, and they panic as Dumby comes for them. Dumby unleashes an attack that crashes into their tree. Realizing his ribs are broken and his companions are captured, the poacher decides he must run. Gao Peng orders Stripey to use a spiderweb, instantly trapping the fleeing man. The poacher begs for his life, offering all the Red River apes they have killed in exchange for mercy. Gao Peng asks why they kill the apes, and the poacher explains that the Zhou family's second daughter has a familiar that eats their hearts. Gao Peng is disgusted that they slaughter the apes just to appease a powerful family. The poachers blame Captain Li, claiming he ordered them to kill all the apes to drive up the price. Gao Peng tells Dumby to handle the poachers as he sees fit and walks away, ignoring their threats about the Zhou family. Dumby summons the surviving Red River apes, declaring an eye for an eye. The apes charge in a rage as the poacher screams in terror. Later, a surviving ape hugs Dumby, while Gao Peng tells his grandfather over a call that he feels down despite doing nothing wrong. Yi Hanwu asks if he regrets it, and when Gao Peng says he does not know, asks if he would stop his familiar given another chance. Gao Peng says no, so Ji Hanwu tells him to stay true to his beliefs, because being ruthless outside is better than losing. Gao Peng heads to the river to see the king red carp, where a man explains that sacrifices are offered in exchange for scales based on contribution. Gao Peng identifies the beast as a level 44 Lord tier dragonblood red sand carp, just as it surfaces and the crowd panics. People throw food into the water, and the carp swallows it before spitting out a red orb. The crowd takes the scales in order to avoid angering the carp, while Gao Peng marvels at its hydrokinesis and wonders what his grandfather's Lord tier familiar is like. Meanwhile, in Lusaka, a dark portal tears open in a city intersection, setting off high-energy spatial rift alarms at a control center. A scout riding a red falcon investigates, ordering his mount to fly higher as hooves march out of the dark vortex. He looks down in shock. Elsewhere in the wilderness, monsters clash and hunt each other down. Back at Jihanwu's villa on the Yuzhou outskirts, a news broadcast announces a new spatial rift in Lusaka. Gao Peng asks why his grandfather seems pleased about such a danger, and Jihanwu explains that the strong view rifts as an opportunity to claim new familiars from other worlds. Jihanwu hands over a keycard to the villa's laboratory along with the materials Gao Wenpeng requested, advising him to consult the company's advanced breeders. Gao Peng thanks him, secretly knowing his system is far more reliable than any professional. Gao Peng asks to see his grandfather's familiars, so Jihanwu tells him to go find White himself. Unable to find the creature, Gao Peng decides to cool off in the backyard lake, only to be launched into the air by a water jet. He screams for Flamey to save him, but Jihanwu orders White to play gently, and a wave safely catches Gao Peng before he hits the ground. A white aquatic dragon emerges from the water. Gao Peng checks its stats, noting its level 51 rank and passive skills that harden its scales, realizing it surpasses the dragon blood red sand carp. He realizes the dragon is suppressing its aura to spare him any pressure because they are allies. When the dragon yawns, Gao Peng turns away, complaining that it is too stingy to let him pet it. In response, the dragon reaches out with a giant claw and smugly rubs his head. Deciding he needs to raise Silly, Dizzy, and Stripey back to perfect grade, Gao Peng heads to the laboratory. He pours a red serum for Silly, hoping to finally change its jade green color. Silly absorbs the serum, giving off a green apple scent, and upgrades to a level 20 perfect grade dimensional jellyfish. Despite the red serum, Silly remains green and settles on Gao Peng's head, leaving him to cope with wearing a jellyfish while his other familiars stare. Later at the training ground, Gao Peng greets Jun Song, noting that the hardworking man is always the first to arrive. Gao Peng then orders Flammy to practice 2 at a time and begins throwing objects for it to catch. Gao Peng complains that training a fire-type familiar in the summer heat is torture, just as a subordinate reports they have opened jobs for orphans to help them afford meals. Gao Peng declines to monitor the work so he can focus on training, instructing the man to prioritize character over capability when scouting new talents. They notice a crowd gathered on the field, and the subordinate explains that a monster attacked the factory, so Manager Shui is discussing the rescue mission with Security Supervisor Zhang. Seeing the discussion going poorly, Gao Peng walks over to ask Supervisor Zhang if they have found the monster. Someone reports that the injured worker survived, but the monster escaped into the sewage system, leaving Manager Shui frustrated by the situation. Gao Peng asks how a monster breached the factory, and a man informs him the sewage system has no defensive measures except a waste discharge gate. Gao Peng asks Supervisor Zhang what the lack of defenses means, demanding to know why people were injured. He orders Supervisor Jian to show him the way and leaves Manager Shui to handle the aftermath, silently criticizing her lack of social awareness. At the factory yard, Gao Peng investigates the hole where the monster vanished, assuming his grandfather's familiar has already cleared out any major threats down there. Gao Peng insists on going down himself, which frustrates Supervisor Zhang because he hates cleaning up after sheltered youths trying to act tough. Gao Peng tells Zhang to stay behind and maintain order, noting that Zhang's mantis familiar is unsuited for combat in damp, narrow spaces. Realizing Gao Peng is actually helping him save face, Zhang advises him that the monster is agile and tells him to walk west to reach the gate. Gao Peng takes Daza and Stripey into the dark tunnel, feeling strangely calm until he wonders if something is lurking above them. He spots a giant cockroach and calls out to Stripey to attack, just as the creature spits a substance at them. His familiars retaliate with strikes and electricity to engulf the monster in an explosion. Dazi smells something fragrant and begs for permission to eat, which Gao Peng quickly grants. Dazi crawls forward hungrily, but Stripey is suddenly struck by an insect limb, and Dazi watches in disappointment as its meal flies away. Flamey mistakes the flying bug for a giant disc and blasts it with fire to bring it down. The other familiars cheer excitedly for the successful attack. Gao Peng investigates the gate controls, theorizing the cockroaches slipped in when the gate opened to discharge waste. He turns around to face a dark void filled with countless red eyes, and curses in frustration because the infestation is much larger than he thought. Gao Peng shines his flashlight into the dark and curses the sheer numbers as a swarm of cockroaches blocks his path. He commands Stripey to advance, Da Zi to watch their backs, and Flamey to burn the swarm, prompting the bird to unleash a stream of fire. Hearing a chittering sound, Gao Peng realizes a fat cockroach is giving the orders, so he tells Stripey to take out the leader first. Stripey slices through the swarm and strikes the leader, exposing a dark, armored creature hidden inside. Seeing the sheer numbers, Gao Peng concludes these giant cockroaches were the cause of the factory accident. He notices something writhing in Stripey's mouth and identifies it as a level 19 perfect grade Dark Daughter parasite subbody, noting its impressive defensive attributes. After a small, three-eyed creature emerges from a puddle and vomits, Gao Peng mocks Stripey for his poor oral hygiene. Knowing there is more to find, he instructs Da Zi to use his sense of smell to track the main body by following the subbody scent. A sudden disturbance rocks the area, and his familiars warn him of a large presence behind them that supposedly has no ill intentions. His system reads it as a level 39 monster, making Gao Peng realize, with dread, that it must be his grandfather's familiar, and that Ji Hanwu will laugh at him if he finds out. Demanding compensation for his emotional damage, he tells Dazza to keep tracking the smell of the black threads. They corner a small, blob-like creature, and when it tries to flee, Gao Peng has Flamey block its path with an explosion. A fierce red demonic rat creature lunges from the smoke, clashing with their attacks. Gao Peng orders Dazi to electrocute it, and the centipede unleashes a crackling surge of yellow lightning that strikes the red creature head-on. The masked man watches a small creature flee, realizing his Dark Daughter's parasitic bond is actually symbiotic, which is perfect because he only needs its abilities, not its thoughts. He taunts his opponents, warning them that struggling is futile. Elsewhere, Gao Piong tells Dazi and Dumby to head back and rest now that the situation is handled. Suddenly, Dumby squirms, and Gao Peng realizes a parasitic daughter is stupidly trying to find flesh and blood on the skeleton's bare bones. Dumby complains about the tickling sensation, prompting Gao Peng to dismiss the useless parasite since it cannot be tamed quickly. After ordering Section Chief Wang to secure it in a glass box, Gao Peng receives a message from Ji Hanwu that his personal laboratory is ready, so he excitedly heads back. Deep inside a cave behind the villa, Ji Hanwu directs him to touch a device, opening a door that makes Gao Peng call the setup far too high profile. Inside the pristine facility, Ji Hanwu introduces Gao Peng to Deng Yimiao and Xu Heming, two of the Southern Sky Group's advanced monster breeders. To secure their cooperation, Ji Hanwu raises Deng Yimiao's budget by 20%, then proudly introduces Gao Peng as an intermediate breeder, before loudly downplaying his talent to keep him humble. Gao Peng explains he wants to create experimental evolution agents for familiars because mass-producing standard drugs will generate profits and boost the company's reputation. Ji Hanwu forces a terrible laugh of fake enthusiasm, making Gao Peng realize the two experts are likely mocking his ambitious idea, so he decides he must produce results to prove his point. Working at the digital interface, Gao Peng extracts a red test tube and presents the Bloody Butcher, an agent made from bloody fruit, golden thread fungi, and black magic spider organs. He selects a black raging Kong as the test subject, leading the researchers to assume this is merely a cheaper, improved version of an already mature evolutionary path. Wanting to leave a deep impression, Gao Peng orders the ape heavily anesthetized before a robotic needle injects the new reagent. The Kong retches and surges with red energy, prompting the experts to declare this intense reaction is worth researching. A researcher observes the experiment, noting that even a failure would yield useful data. But he is amazed by Gao Peng's talent as the creature evolves into a level 10, excellent grade blood-raging Kong. The researcher tells Ji Hanwu that this evolution method is astounding because no such ape type is currently known, so Ji Hanwu orders a test using a soul crystal obsidian, which measures the grade of monsters below Lord tier. Seeing the excellent grade result, Ji Hanwu realizes Gao Peng's talent could put him in danger, so he orders his subordinates to keep the day's events a strict company secret. Ji Hanwu asks Gao Peng to name his unprecedented creation, so Gao Peng decides to call it the Blood Raging Kong. Gao Peng introduces 3 new reagents he created. He explains that he injected the petrochemical reagent into a giant ant to raise its defenses because altering a monster's agility is too difficult. He reveals the result is the excellent grade Stoneheart ant. Next, he presents the royal reagent, which evolved a sparrow into an Emperor Wolf Mountain Sparrow, but he warns it has a defect because it makes promotion to Lord tier harder. Ji Hanwu argues that guaranteeing a monster's evolution to perfect grade is incredible, and the drawback is barely a defect. Gao Peng explains the Earth reagent can upgrade a golden light Dobbs grade and increase its strength. Ji Hanwu tells Gao Piang to report all future experiments only to him, ordering the mass production of the Earth and petrochemical reagents. while keeping the royal reagent private because it is too valuable. The subordinates take their leave, discussing how Gao Ping's terrifying talent means he might surpass them in less than 2 years. Gao Peng privately admits his laboratory is just an excuse to enjoy the air conditioning, because his system provides the evolution pathways without needing actual experiments. Later, Gao Peng asks Jianwu about upcoming expeditions because he wants to become a world hunter, a special group of elite explorers. He expresses his excitement for scouting unknown territories, though Jianwu remarks on his lifelong wild behavior. Jianwu refuses his request, warning him that the wilderness is too dangerous and threatening to break his legs if he goes without permission. Gao Peng silently notes that because of his damage-sharing bond, Jianwu would have to break the legs of Daza, Stripey, and Silly first. Jianwu orders him to bring his familiars for special training at 6 the next morning. When Gao Peng arrives exactly on time, Jianwu rewards his punctuality by ordering him to do 30 push-ups. Gao Peng complains that humans do not need to train because their familiars protect them. Questioning if it is truly unnecessary, Jianwu responds by destroying a tree with a single kick. Jianwu scolds him for being naive, explaining that trainers must protect their own lives to survive, and that familiar feedback gradually increases a trainer's own physical strength. Jianwu boasts that he only used 30% of his strength, leaving Gao Peng amazed. In the water, the white aquatic dragon hopes Gao Peng will worship him now. Jianwu calls out his thunder god Snail to give Dazi a push, because they are both electric types. Gao Peng recognizes the creature as the familiar he saw in the sewers. Gao Peng tells Dazi to respect its senior and scolds it for being cowardly. Dazi cries that Gao Peng has changed and says it learned the cowardice from him. Jianwu hands the disobedient centipede over to the thunder god Snail, asking not to hold back during training. Gao Peng asks how to train his other familiars. Jianwu suggests pairing Flamey with Daza, then asks about Stripey. Gao Peng decides to focus on defense and control, so they must train Stripey's counterattack abilities. Jianwu snaps his fingers and assigns the white aquatic dragon to spar with Dumby and Stripey. The dragon prepares to begin the fight. The dragon lunges forward and delivers a heavy blow to Dumby. Stripey digs a hole to set a trap, surprising Gao Peng with its tactics, but the dragon easily crushes the spider under its foot. The dragon slams Dumby into the ground, causing Stripey to enter an agitated berserk state. Gao Peng worries because it will be troublesome if Stripey loses control. Stripey leaps at the dragon but is flicked away, while Dumby crouches and unleashes a burst of energy. The dragon swings its tail, but Dumby manages to land a hit and surprise the beast. Jianwu laughs that they still need training. Gao Peng sits on the ground, stunned that his familiars were defeated so quickly. Gao Peng walks over to check on the others just as the thunder god Snail unleashes its true power, leaving Dazai completely amazed. The snail explains that controlling electricity is a natural talent, noting that Flamey could never walk with hundreds of legs. Flamey insults the snail right back for having short legs. The snail praises Flamey for creating a fireball on its first try, saying it has great potential. Flamey acts smug, prompting an annoyed Dazi to ask what there is to be smug about. Dazi realizes it can channel its hidden power, and Gao Peng encourages him to slowly release it. The familiars undergo intense training, and Silly begs a big fish not to eat it. Half a month later, Dumby charges into battle against a large wolf-like beast, trading heavy blows until he unleashes a fiery attack. The beast crashes to the ground, and Gao Peng asks if the battle is over. Jianwu tells Gao Peng his reflexes meet the standards, explaining that closing the distance against commander-tier water attacks means he has already won half the battle. Daza tells Silly it is just a tank to withstand attacks, so Gao Peng reassures his crying familiar. Gao Peng notes that Flamey controls fire skillfully now, while Silly has reached commander tier, expanding its portable space to the size of a truck compartment. Because the training objectives are achieved and he has packed survival necessities, Gao Peng is ready, so Jianwu hands him a bag. Jianwu explains the bag contains a map, compass, and solar-powered tablet, noting that Gao Peng's flying familiar offers extra protection for expeditions. Jianwu tells him to act with confidence because he will always be his shield, and Gao Peng notices his grandfather's hair is graying before promising to return. Gao Peng and his familiars arrive in a jungle outside Yuzhou City, where he checks his map and realizes the red circles mark dangerous Lord-tier monster territories. He needs an Earth Spirit Core to evolve Stripey to the epic grade, and realizes his increased soul strength now highlights where to find such materials. Flamey spots giant mosquitoes, but Gao Peng orders it to wait because attacking in the dark jungle could get them surrounded. To deal with them smartly, Gao Peng pulls out a bag of super mosquito repellent made from mutated plants, and Dumby fans the scent into the air. The giant mosquitoes drop from the sky, and Gao Peng tells his familiars that this is simply basic. Suddenly, Gao Peng is shocked when a level 26 excellent grade Storm Panther lunges at them with incredible speed. Relieved that Dumby blocked the Storm Panther's attack in time, Gao Peng watches his familiars land a heavy counterstrike. As the Panther flees across the river, Gao Peng calls Flamey back because none of his familiars specialize in speed, swearing he will skin the beast next time. Suddenly, he is knocked to the ground by level 29 Golden Palm Tree Spirit, and furious at being ambushed again, he orders to Z and Flamey to attack. His familiars clash with the Tree Spirit in a fierce magical battle, while Gao Peng challenges the monster to crank it up a notch. After defeating it, Gao Peng harvests a commander tier plant core worth a fortune and finds a hidden mountain cave to rest out of the wind. There they are approached by a strange yellow creature croaking like a frog, and Gao Peng scolds the duck to leave before his familiars get hungry. However, his system reveals it is a level 10 epic grade adamantine duck, so he apologizes for his rudeness before warning the mutant to stay away from humans. As they pack up to leave, Flamey complains that it wants to eat the duck, but Gao Peng ignores the bickering and leads his familiars into the forest. The duck follows them and begs them to wait, so Flamey translates that it calls Gao Peng a big duck because he tried to correct its quacking. Gao Peng yells at the duck to shut up and urges Stripey to move faster, causing the rejected chick to trip and cry that nobody wants it. Unable to leave an abandoned epic grade monster behind, Gao Peng scoops the crying duck up, and his familiars immediately gather around to offer their protection. Later, they arrive at the Yuzhou City Stone Forest, where Gao Peng spots a narrow cave with a high chance of containing an Earth Spirit core. Since Dumby, Stripey, and Flammy are too large to fit, Gao Peng sends Daza inside to search for Earth elemental energy, warning the centipede to retreat if it encounters danger. Before long, a level 11 rock scorpion emerges, but Gao Peng stops Dumby from interfering, deciding to use the weak monster to test the adamantine duck's true combat power. The duck gets into a shouting match with a scorpion, while the others wait in silence. Gao Peng tells Dumby to chase the creature away and the scorpion flees. He stares at the duck, questioning how it has managed to survive this long on its own. Dazi brings Gao Peng a small Earth Spirit core, and he feeds it to Stripey to trigger its evolution, hoping the small size is enough. They move to a marked location to rest, letting Stripey sleep. Dumby buries something in the ground, and Gao Peng tells everyone to stay alert because the area's master might return. That night, a centipede monster returns to its house and finds the duck sleeping right in front of its door. The centipede bites the duck, who wakes up, emits energy, and asks why it was attacked. The centipede blasts the duck and laughs at its pain, before suddenly looking surprised. The duck roars, creating a disturbance that wakes Gao Peng, who peeks out to ask what is going on. He is shocked to see the duck has grown significantly, realizing this must be how it survives. The centipede flees, but the duck strikes it down, and Gao Peng realizes the duck's passive ability to expand its body size is highly effective. He decides to form a blood contract with the duck, and enters its bright mindscape. He finds a light-hearted world filled with winged trees and faced flowers, matching the duck's silly exterior. Suddenly the mood shifts as the duck's memories surface. Its parents examine their child but reject it because it has 5 toes. Its siblings refuse to share their fish, slap the duck away, and tell it not to come near them. When the duck unleashes its power in response, the others cower and cry to their father that a monster is bullying them. The flock screams at the 5-toed duck to go away, leaving it crying over being called a monster just because of an extra toe. Gao Peng finds the crying duck in the void and realizes this is why the adamantine duck is so sensitive. He offers it all the fish it can eat if it follows him. The duck agrees, so Gao Peng signs a blood contract and names it Goldie because of its yellow feathers. A light erupts from the rubble to startle Gao Peng before an armored creature screeches. Gao Peng checks his system and celebrates because Stripey has successfully evolved into a level 25 Commander Tier Earth Shield Spider, completing their mountain mission. Back at Yuzhou Mansion, Gao Peng gets out of the shower and reads the documents his grandfather left for him. The reports show divers found an unknown object in Zihai Lake, which Gao Peng recognizes as the forbidden magic stone he needs to awaken Silly's second skill. Ji Hanwu calls via hologram, confirms it is the ingredient, and tells Gao Peng to just wait at home while he sends someone to retrieve it. Gao Peng expects to have to fight wild monsters and rich brats for the prize, but admits he is actually quite happy to just sit back. Meanwhile, at Zihai Lake, mercenaries wonder how many fish are in the water as a carp infestation swarms the disturbance. The Black 8 group is offering 300 million alliance dollars and 3 commander tier cores for the stone, but the mercenaries realize flying familiars are useless here. Seeing the Golden Goose King and its flock dominating the sky, the mercenary boss orders a full retreat, abandoning the money. Deep underwater, the purple-backed carp chief's daughter finds the forbidden magic stone, hoping to eat it so she can give birth to powerful children like her mother. A giant carp subchief emerges from the dark water, terrifying the smaller fish. The guards warn the beast that their king will be furious if it touches the chief's daughter, but the subchief wants revenge because the purple-backed carp chief slaughtered its kind. The guards try to trap the beast in water currents to buy time, but the subchief tears through them, declaring their evolutionary path is an abomination and that brute strength is the only thing that matters. A fish lunges out of the water and knocks the others unconscious. The giant carp opens its mouth and swallows a crystal before emerging. Flying creatures notice the stone has disappeared. An owl-like creature unleashes an attack and dives forward at high speed. A clawed hand grabs a fish underwater, demanding a hand the stone over before slashing it. A bald man orders his subordinate to pursue the giant carp because it swallowed the stone. 3 whale-like creatures surface with the gem, prompting a character to alert the retrieval team. As a giant monster attacks, a leader orders his subordinate to retrieve the object they came for. An unseen person criticizes number 3 and tells him to tone down the drama the next time he controls monsters. After reporting the item's retrieval to their boss, the men tell their enemies to back off and leave them to search. Elsewhere, Jihanwu observes Goldie and is surprised the item they found is epic grade. He is shocked that Gao Peng wants to promote the duck to legendary grade because no one has ever succeeded in doing so. Jihanwu encourages his grandson, believing he can do it. Gao Peng prepares the single forbidden magic stone, knowing he cannot afford to fail, and monitors its slow reaction rate. He celebrates when the blue crystal successfully forms. Gao Peng shows Goldie a toy duck, promising to give it to him if he drinks the potion. Goldie bites and swallows the entire glass tube, then falls to the floor crying. Gao Peng asks why Goldie is shedding so many feathers. After a powerful transformation, Goldie becomes a bald, muscular level 10, legendary forbidden, adamantine duck, wondering if his baldness makes him stronger. Gao Peng realizes the next mythical grade requires extraterrestrial ingredients, so he decides to just show his grandfather the current result. Ji Hanwu is stunned that his grandson has achieved a legendary feat no one else on Earth has. He tells Gao Peng to claim the duck was already legendary when he got it, to keep his methods secret. Ji Hanwu then hands Gao Peng the responsibility of promoting his own familiars, leaving Gao Peng moved by his grandfather's unconditional trust. Gao Peng watches with a smile as Goldie finally wakes up from its evolution. He tells the duck it has gotten handsome, but Goldie leaps up, heavily muscled and covered in blue markings. Catching its reflection in a mirror, Goldie laughs at the ugly duck, then realizes in horror that it is looking at itself. Goldie yells at Gao Peng, but Flamey immediately scolds the duck, reminding it that their master worked hard to make it stronger and that noble birds must be polite. Gao Peng checks Goldie's new secret pattern skill, noting it provides elemental resistance and projects an anti-magic field. Later, Gao Peng arrives at the Yuzhou University branch campus college town to register for the monster trainer major. He approaches the registration booth, where the older students note that monster breeders are much more respected than trainers these days. He scans his admission ticket, and the staff are stunned to see he is the highest scorer in Chang'an City and ranked 11th in the entire Wuxia region. A senior student eagerly guides him to the dorms, chatting about the city's 4 legendary monster trainers, including Shui Ming and Lin Shenrui. They arrive at the luxurious dormitories, where the senior points out a statue of Jihanwu, praising the Southern Sky Group director as the city's protector. Looking at the statue, Gao Peng reflects on how much his grandfather has contributed to the city's safety. Meanwhile, in the mountains, outside Yuzhou City, a team of hunters halts on a wooded path. The captain warns that our familiar is terrified, a sign that a Lord-tier monster is near just before an explosion rocks the forest. Back in the city, Gao Peng watches his grandfather's white aquatic dragon patrol the rainy sky, wondering why level 5 martial law has been declared over the missing hunters. Yanwu returns home, explaining he was out helping Tang Tang's Shatterjabalura break through to Lord Tier. As Gao Peng pours tea and asks about the martial law, Ji Hanwu reveals they are dealing with a completely new, undiscovered type of monster. A man explains that the monster problem is happening globally, prompting scholars to research ancient myths to understand the new mountain spirits. He notes these living mountains are up to 300 meters high, and because they disguise themselves as ordinary terrain, they have killed missing hunters who accidentally entered them. Gao Peng tells Ji Hanwu he refuses to sacrifice himself because being a hero is too dangerous. Ji Hanwu assures him the Wanzai Moon Gold will arrive in a few days and tells him to rest. Gao Peng realizes his grandfather has already acquired the materials to promote Dumby, but decides he must produce more reagents because the worsening situation means he can no longer sit back. A few days later, Yuzhou University students discuss a drug that boosted a monster's strength, noting that everyone wants to get stronger because things are tense. Gao Peng checks his phone and is surprised by a message from Ji Hanwu, showing stats for a level 48 Lord tier mountain spirit, which worries him because there are many mountains around Yuzhou City. He attempts a video call, but the screen is black, and Ji Hanwu tells him the signal is bad because he is at a high altitude. Standing on his beast, Ji Hanwu tells Gao Peng to go home while he finishes his exercise. He calls out to his old friend, and his beast unleashes an attack. At a military base, a man receives a report that Ji Hanwu has destroyed Mountain Spirit No. 1 and taken its core. The men celebrate Mr. Zhou for stepping up against the arrogant spirits, agreeing that humans will negotiate but will not yield. Later, a scientist tells Chairman Ji the military has established a temporary peace treaty, and Ji Hanwu explains that fists were necessary to force negotiations because the spirits thought they were invincible. The scientist praises Chairman Ji and presents the Royal Mountain Wolfbird Army they have trained. A trainer whistles to signal the Royal Mountain Wolfbirds, pointing out their leader, and an older man orders a combat test. A handler opens the gate to release a commander-tier swine monster, praising the royal reagent's creator. The birds squawk and face the boar. Even though they usually would not attack such a high-level monster, the birds swarm the boar and tear its flesh. A researcher praises the results, and Ji Hanwu notes his grandson is a genius, having already sent him the next batch of materials. Elsewhere, Gao Peng paints red lines on the ground to complete an ominous setup as Dumby emerges from a hole. He has C for the Wanzai Moon Gold, noting that the super rare material feels cool to the touch. He tells Dumby to swallow it, and the skeleton unleashes a blast of energy. Gao Peng and Silly watch in surprise as a white-boned Steely appears where Dumby was standing. Shadows appear in the forest. They take the form of masked warriors that bow to worship their new king. Dumby evolves into a level 30 legendary skeleton tyrant, increasing its level by 4. Gao Peng evaluates Dumby's new Flame of the Undead skill, noting it requires a corpse to summon undead and allows Dumby to absorb their energy to grow. He asks Dumby why his appearance changed so much. To test Dumby's new defenses, Gao Peng tells Dazi to bite Dumby's thigh bone, but notices Dazi is scared of the tyrant's aura. Insisting he is not scared, Dazi bites down hard on the bone, realizing his bite did nothing. Daisy runs away because he feels too weak to protect Gao Peng anymore. Gao Peng reflects that Stripey and Flamey are epic grade, while Dumby and Goldie are legendary. Unlike Silly, who only cares about drinking juice, Dazi wants to improve. So Gao Peng explains they simply lack the materials for his promotion. He comforts Dazi, promising that he will always be his most important companion. Gao Peng watches in confusion as Dumby offers Dazi a roasted chicken, which Dazi happily accepts. Gao Peng asks Dumby to demonstrate his summoning skill. Dumby pierces a corpse with his energy. Gao Peng complains that the resurrected spirit looks more like a husky than a wind-chasing wolf. Ji Hanwu asks if Gao Peng is going out to find materials for his centipede. Gao Peng explains he needs to promote Dazi, because a lack of suitable materials has left his first familiar as his weakest. Ji Hanwu warns him not to stay out long because the mountain spirits might turn hostile, and insists he take Tong along. Gao Peng complains that his grandfather still treats him like a child. The group gathers by the lake as Tang Tang arrives. She arrives riding a level 41 Phantom Japalura. Gao Peng analyzes the dragon's passive skills, noting its skin absorbs sound and matches its surroundings to make it an undetectable assassin. Silly excitedly tells the large bird they share the same aura. Gao Peng notes the vulture reached Lord Tier through manic training, so it likely detests Silly for getting stronger just by taking hits. Tang Tang greets Gao Peng warmly, and he notices she has become prettier. Tang Tang grabs his shirt and tosses him onto her bird, insisting they leave immediately because her employer already gave her the details. Dumby is hauled up as well, and when Gao Peng protests that he hasn't gathered his other familiars, Tang tells him they will be back quickly. Ji Hanwu laughs and tells him to stay safe. Tang Tang calls out to Gao Peng, who is shocked that her mount crossed the jungle in half an hour to reach a spot that previously took him days. Gao Peng looks for lightning moths around the lake, noting they need damp environments and an abundant electricity source. He regrets not bringing Daza, because an electric-type monster would sense the electricity more easily. Instead, he calls on Dumby, who unleashes a blue flame. Dumby mass resurrects the lake's fish skeletons, and tells Gao Peng the swarm will search the lake bottom to store energy-rich items in Silly's portable space. Tang Tang asks why a close combat skeleton has a summoning skill. Gao Peng explains he wasn't picky, because promoting a familiar to legendary grade is a rare opportunity. And Tang agrees, power comes first. The limitless nature of Dumby's resurrection flame proves its legendary status, as it could trigger a zombie apocalypse on its own. The skeleton fish return carrying low-purity water spirit stones. Gao Peng deduces that a vein of water spirit stone has recently formed at the bottom of the lake, and Dumby tells his companions to rest. Dumby absorbs the energy from the returning skeletons to reach level 31. Gao Peng is shocked to realize that absorbing resurrected energy is highly effective. A sudden explosion sends Gao Peng running as he realizes a mountain spirit is nearby. Tang Tang immediately grabs him and throws him to safety. The stone creature awakens while Gao Peng admits it would give a weaker person a nervous breakdown. The bird tells Tang Tang that the mountain spirit is calling them. Gao Peng points out the mountain spirit wants to bargain and is pleasantly surprised when it demands human blood for the treasure's location, finding a commander-tier armadillo hiding in the rocks. Gao Peng wonders if these earth-walking creatures are the giant mountain spirit's weakness. Tang Tang orders her light albatross to smoke the creatures out, and the bird dives so suddenly that Gao Peng has to shout he is still on its back. The bird hurls an armadillo to the mountain spirit, which crushes the creature in its rocky jaws, but complains that one is not enough. Tang Tang demands the location first in case the spirit breaks its word, but the golem insists it needs 4 more armadillos. The remaining armadillos scatter and burrow underground to escape, telling Gao Peng to move aside. Tang leaps down and summons her familiars to flush the prey out. Her dragon smashes the earth to toss the hidden creatures into the air and defeat a commander-tier 3-headed armadillo. Tang Tang demands the location again, and the spirit directs them to a cliff 5 mountains east, so she sends her Shadow Japalura to verify the claim. 10 minutes later, the Shadow Japalura returns with the genuine Lightning Bell Pine, so Gao Peng gives the okay, and they depart to finish disease evolution. Gao Peng wonders why the mountain spirit craved commander-tier armadillo meat, guessing it just wanted them to clear the armadillos so it could claim whatever was buried underground. Tang Tang teases him for being a wily fox and suggests they take the buried item for themselves. Gao Peng tells her they shouldn't be too greedy since they already got what they came for. Back at Yuzhou City, a guide shows Ji Hanwu and Gao Peng the industrial area where monster bones are ground into powder or fed to familiars. Realizing Dumby needs skeletons over 3/4 complete, Ji Hanwu asks factory director Zhao if the bones are always this crushed, then orders him to maintain their integrity from now on. Gao Peng instructs Dumby to return to the facility daily to revive skeletons and absorb their flames of the undead, and Ji Hanwu asks if he needs help finding other materials. Gao Peng declines because this method works, and Ji Hanwu tells him the ingredients for a centipede's evolution will arrive tomorrow. Gao Peng explains that the Lightning Bell Pine fruit they brought back can evolve Dazi into a flying-type familiar. The next day, Gao Peng calls Dazi out, showing it the newly arrived ingredients, and leads it to the laboratory for its evolution. He plans to prepare a special solution using golden-winged cicadas, but regrets not asking his grandfather for an assistant. A woman named Xu Qingji arrives, introducing herself as his new assistant and explaining she is Professor Xu's niece to assure him of her skills. Gao Peng tells her to come over, instructing her to quickly and precisely pierce the cicada's head so the insect does not struggle and damage its wings. He demonstrates how to gently detach the wings at the joint and encourages her to try it. As Xu Qingji focuses on the task, Gao Peng realizes his grandfather sent someone trustworthy, though he internally doubts her intelligence. Xu Qingji finishes the task, and Gao Peng checks the wings before telling her she passed the test. Since she is done, Gao Peng dismisses her, leaving her completely shocked. Gao Peng begins the procedure, putting the wings into the solution and adding the fruit of the Lightning Bell Pine. Once the electrified solution is ready, he instructs Daisy to jump in, and the centipede leaps into the tank to evolve. Outside, Xu Qingji hears thunder and wishes that heartless ungrateful bastard gets struck by lightning. Inside, Gao Peng looks up at a shadowy winged creature and declares the evolution a success. He sees that Daze is now an epic grade level 28, 6-winged thunder centipede, noting its weakness in the 7th body segment and its new thunder wings that open up multiple legendary evolution pathways. Gao Peng praises Dazi's new appearance. He notes Daze is now his strongest familiar and wonders how Dumby is doing. At the slaughterhouse, Dumby absorbs energy from the bone pits. He summons a horde of skeletons from the ground. A man orders the security guard to delete the footage and disable the cameras whenever Dumby is there, so no one discovers him. Dumby presses a button on the wall to signal for more materials. A worker tells his subordinate to keep sending the next batch down without asking questions. Later at Yuzhou University, Gao Peng calculates that Dumby has reached level 33 and should hit Lord tier before the championships. Junmoi startles a student to ask if Gao Peng is free. She invites him to see a new type of monster the student association discovered. Gao Peng asks if non-members are allowed, and she explains a senior just needs trainers to help. They meet at a buffet restaurant, where Gao Peng notices the senior looks haggard. A student introduces Senior Li Yu and asks him to explain the situation. Li Yu says he is too afraid to go home because he keeps hearing bickering from the floor above his top-floor apartment. He explains he checked the rooftop with his dog, but found it completely empty. The story terrifies the girls, but a man reassures them their large group will scare off any ghost. Gao Peng tells Goldie to carry him and run at the first sign of trouble, ignoring Goldie's reminder that he is just a duck. Something rushes past them. The group arrives at Li Yu's apartment building and finds nothing out of the ordinary. A woman asks about a man's black anaconda, and he explains he left it behind because the city streets are too narrow for it. They hurry toward the entrance. Li Yu opens his door and calls out to Anne. The group stops when they smell a rotting corpse. Li Yu realizes he shouldn't have left Anna alone and rushes inside to help. The group debates calling the police, but one man insists they can handle it to be the ones who save him, leaving Gao Peng concerned about their arrogance. A man stumbles out of the room begging for help as a claw reaches for him. Gao Peng checks its stats and sees it is a green haunt, a monster that feeds on fear to fuel its attacks. The creature projects a thick white fog, making the others think it is a commander-tier monster, so the leader tells his men to run and call the police while he holds it off. The monster roars and grows larger as it feeds on their terror. As the group flees, they ask Gao Peng why he is not running. He explains that since it is just a monster, it has a weakness they can exploit. He sends Goldie forward, ignoring the men's warnings that the beast is too strong. Goldie activates its forbidden domain, instantly shattering the white fog and revealing the real monster near the window. Gao Peng explains the giant beast was just an illusion, and yells at Goldie for killing the real green haunt by kicking it out the window. He complains that he wanted to take it home and raise it, while the others watch him in shock. Down below, a girl sends her two-headed dog to attack a man who is trying to steal the monster's corpse. Gao Peng tells the girl he is leaving, as the police will arrive soon to take the body anyway. The thief claims he only wanted to sell the corpse for money, but the group finds his timing highly suspicious. Walking away, Gao Peng notes that Goldie's ability perfectly counters illusions and decides to call a taxi home to plan his next move. A car pulls up immediately, and he gets in and asks to be taken to the Southern Sky Group. He notices the driver glancing in the rearview mirror and realizes they are going the wrong way, so he asks the man to pull over. When the driver tells him not to be hasty, Gao Peng orders Goldie to punch him in the face. Gao Peng kicks the car door open and demands to know who sent the driver. The driver casually pats his companion on the head, leaving Gao Peng confused. Gao Peng tries to defuse the situation, telling the men he has nothing against them. The older man scoffs, mocking the idea that Gao Peng has nothing against him. A white beast lunges forward, and Gao Peng watches it come. The monster attacks, and Gao Peng rushes forward to meet it. The older man blames Gao Peng for meddling in his business. Yao Ping rubs his head, noting that his immunity to damage does not stop the punch from stinging. The older man stares in shock because Gao Peng is completely unharmed, seeing the creature is a level 20 frost corpse monkey. Gao Peng figures they came to avenge the green haunt's death. He tells the monster it is going too far and blocks its claw. The monkey grabs Goldie, and the duck furiously attacks it for touching him. The older man demands to know why the duck suddenly grew so large. Gao Peng mocks the man's lack of tactics, explaining that he passively transfers any damage he takes directly to Goldie to increase the duck's combat power. Goldie lands a flying kick, and Gao Peng smiles. The older man pulls a weapon from the car trunk and swings at Gao Peng, telling him to die. Gao Peng remembers Jihanwu teaching him how to harness the power bonus from his familiars. Jihanwu told him to channel the energy from his core all the way up his body. Gao Peng drives his fist straight into the older man's face. He stands over the unconscious man, telling him he overestimated himself. He quickly yells at Goldie to stop eating the defeated monkey. Lost in the city, Gao Peng decides to call a contact Jihanwu gave him and asks them to send fighters to his location. The voice on the phone confirms his location is already tracking, which impresses Gao Peng. Helicopters arrive, and Gao Peng waves them down. The soldiers land and ask for orders, though Gao Peng notes their matching uniforms make them look like villains. The leader, Huang Ya, explains that his men handle Jihanwu's less scrupulous affairs, and they are here to help Gao Peng. Gao Peng explains the attack, and Huang Ya's men take custody of the unconscious attacker. After checking in database, a soldier reports the attacker belongs to a criminal group with 2 commander-tier familiars. Gao Peng is disappointed they are mere thugs, so Huang Ya orders his men to target the Xingmao building to take out the rest of the group. He tells them to capture the familiars alive if possible, but to prioritize their own safety. Elsewhere, a man tells his partner that something is wrong because Brother C has not checked in, and the woman tells him to get dressed so they can flee. The man grabs his familiar and says he feels safer with it by his side. They check the back door and slip out into the night. Armed guards fire anesthesia bullets to subdue the trembling intruders. The night terror ghost loses control, so the man in blue armor warns his team to ignore its auditory hallucinations. A red blood war horse crushes the creature, and the man declares the mission accomplished. Gao Ping tells him they finished fast, realizing the level 32 horse belongs to Huangya and perfectly counters ghoul types. He scans the defeated enemy and is surprised to find a level 23 G spirit, because it is an actual mythical creature. Gao Peng asks Huangya to leave the ghost child with him for study, and invites him to visit the laboratory. Huangya warns his horse to behave, because Gao Peng can help it evolve, but the horse acts arrogant after reading a biography of the Boo. Gao Peng uncaps a reagent to bribe the horse, eager to get his hands on it. Huangya promises the horse more hay to calm it down, and Gao Peng notes their close bond. Later, Gao Peng greets Jihan Wu, who returns early and asks how the familiars are progressing. Gao Peng explains that Daza and Strayby are both around level 30, balancing flight offense and spiderweb defense. Nearby, Dumby and Goldie spar. Dumby conjures a dark weapon, prompting Goldie to accuse him of cheating. Gao Peng notes Dumby is now level 39, but Jihan Wu warns Gao Peng his own level is too low to be a referee, before revealing the white aquatic dragon will break through tonight. Gao Peng realizes the dragon will reach King Tier and offers to stand guard, but Jihan Wu tells him to just go to sleep. Out on the balcony, Gao Peng refuses to sleep because he wants to witness a King Tier evolution. He stares out in shock as the level 51 monster begins its breakthrough. Gao Peng hears the howling and wonders why the white aquatic dragon is already level 51, realizing this must be why his grandfather told him to stay away. Meanwhile, at a military meeting, an official complains that Jihan Wu's white aquatic dragon is reaching King Tier because it will only increase the Southern Sky Group's leverage over them. The officers argue over whether to intervene, with some defending Jihan Wu for protecting Yuzhou, while others refuse to act as guard dogs for a businessman. Longxing yells at them for fighting among themselves instead of focusing on the monsters outside, and storms out. The commander ends the argument by ordering everyone to stand down or face a court-martial. The official dismisses the idea because no one in Yuzhou would dare cross Jihan Wu, leaving the subordinate to realize he cannot act alone. Elsewhere, a predator confirms a human told the truth about the breakthrough and decides to eat the aquatic dragon for its blood. A tiger-like monster hears the roar and leaps toward it, deciding the opportunity is worth the risk of a trap. It lands in an empty cavern just before a larger monster bursts from the dark and tears into its flesh. Sometime later, Gao Peng holds out a cake to his familiars,